took a drive one day and put the gun in my mouth, and I was like a split second from pulling the trigger. I mean, it was right there. God, I don't want to do this. If you help me get through this, I'll take full responsibility for everything I've done, and I'll use it to do some good. Woke up one morning and everything was taken down, including all my music stuff on streaming. They took those channels down as well. I opened it up, and inside was a little dead bunny rabbit and a handwritten note that said, "Stop what you're doing." No matter how bad things get, you can always make a comeback, and suicide is never the answer.
Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it, Scar. Thank you for reaching out. Your agent obviously was very persistent and patient with me, as I had to cancel last time for our meeting, and obviously getting this arranged to go again. But I think we can have a good conversation. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it seems like you might have a lot to say yourself, to be honest. I'm probably going to stream this on both channels. I'm going to upload it to my Understanding Creativity and Understanding Conspiracy channel, because it's a bit of a crossover here, because I do believe you have your own conspiracy-related podcast yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did that back in 2016, 2017, and I got kicked off of everything late part of 2017, so I never went back. I did a couple hundred interviews touching every topic we could do in conspiracy, and then some, all the third rail topics that people get banned for, or that say you can't talk about. I did all of those, and I got kicked off of everything. Woke up one morning and everything was taken down, including all my music stuff on streaming. They took those channels down as well. Took down my bank account, got rid of my PayPal, so there was a heavy toll.
2017, that was a very sensitive period in history, especially for censorship. I remember correctly, it was Trump had just been elected, and I think the liberal agenda was in full swing by that point, and in full backlash, shut it all down attitude. It really was a tough time to be on the internet back in that period. Is that what the issue was, do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I would do my show and it was audio only. So I would go live on Spreaker, which was internet radio, and then it would go out all over the place. And YouTube wasn't a huge thing like it is now with video, and I was audio only. I kind of like theater of the mind, so I've always been a fan of talk radio, so that's how I did mine. But I would see the stream go up as soon as I would put the subject up and go live on YouTube. It would be taken down, and it would say this is demonetized, and then pretty soon my whole channel got demonetized. But it's interesting because I see all the stuff your channel and like JT and everybody you're talking about. I used to talk about those things and get like banned immediately, or the show would get taken down on all the platforms. Now it's like the Wild West. They let pretty much everything out there proliferate, amplify. And for me, I'm trying to figure out why that is. I think this is just my gut feeling. Don't put me on like a prediction here, but my gut feeling tells me they're going to let so much truth get out and information and psyops, and they want everything to proliferate as big as they can, and then they're going to initiate some kind of false flag attack that's a cause from all this truth that's been on the internet that we've let run wild, and we're going to have to now lock it all down. I mean, we're seeing that with digital IDs, like where you guys are, and what's happening in Australia. But I think there's going to be, and God forbid, I don't want this to happen, but we know the playbook. There'll be some worldwide 9/11 type event, probably with real life shock and awe and death and destruction or something bad. And they'll say, see, we let this go too far. We've got to shut it down. We got to get this under control and keep everybody safe, even on the internet. So all that stuff's got to go away. Now you got to completely register. That's what my gut tells me. What do you think?
You know what, Scott? You're probably right. That sounds exactly how they would do this. I think it was a long time ago now. I remember David Cameron, one of our ex-prime ministers of the UK, standing in front of the UN with that weird grey background they always stand in front of with the waviness, and he was talking about online extremism, and he was talking about cracking down on false information and all this type of stuff. And that was in like the 2016 2017 period, maybe just a bit earlier as well. So I've known that this has kind of been coming down the pipeline, but surprisingly, much like just like you're explaining, I also have noticed I can get away with a lot more now than I used to be able to get away with. Like 2017 was my last year on YouTube, and before in 2018, I actually had to leave YouTube just for work reasons. I wasn't allowed to have a YouTube channel. So I kind of just went silent for 5 years. So I kind of dodged the being banned period because there was a huge purge happening in that time. And I just kind of went underground and my channel kind of missed it, because I made all my videos hidden and I just went silent for like 5 years. So when I came back, like in 2023, I think it was, everything had changed. Like it was a completely different landscape from when I left it in terms of like truth, the culture, completely different. Like Gnosticism was on the rise and kind of taking over. All kind of like the Christian truths were gone, but it was still like I had to test the waters from like fresh, brand new. Like what can I talk about now? What is YouTube like?
And it's
I've been
open
doing
season. You can do anything you want.
Absolutely. And I'm realizing that as I'm going on, there's some things which I did get a strike for. I'm talking about towers and signals and things people put inside their bodies through mandates. It turns out you're not allowed to talk about that.
Well,
It
when
was
I did
instant.
my show, I was open season because I don't align with either political party. I think it's a total false left-right paradigm. I think all politics are BS. I think we get our rights from our creator, from God, not from man, scribbling things down on a piece of paper and saying, oh, we're in power, so here's your list of rules you can do this year. Oh, give us that back. Here's your new list of rules. We get our rights from God because we're human. So people in fancy buildings on fancy pieces of paper telling you what you can and can't do, I think is a total scam. That's a stretch for a lot of people, but I didn't affiliate with any political party. So on my show, there was no banned words. There weren't things you could say and couldn't say. I used to go live 3 hours a night. So I would do the research for a guy that had a book, an author that was coming on. And I would tell people I got the greatest job in the world because I don't have to buy into anything they're saying. The topic is interesting to me. Maybe I've heard of it before. Maybe it's brand new to me. And I just let them come on and give their pitch and then take live calls and let people debate and just sit back and let it unfold. But I had no restricted words like you can't say that on here. I just let it fly because very early on I got so disgusted. A lot of people don't know. You probably know. I don't know if you promote any of your stuff, but for my music career, when I was on social media, that was a separate world. And I kind of melded them together, which was a bad thing. In the big picture, I don't really care, but I got banned off of everything for music and the conspiracy stuff. But I would promote shows. I would promote my concerts with paid ads on YouTube, and Facebook was really big back then, right? And I looked at when they finally kicked me off, I had spent over like 20 grand over about a decade of promoting shows and my radio shows, advertising for them, boosting them. And one day they just turned me off. So I have a disgust for social media I can't even describe to you. Like, oh, here's the rules of the game. You can pay to go on here, and then they just turn you off. And as we might be able to get into, I've restarted my social channels with that disdain probably a dozen times. I think I have like 0 followers on Twitter, now X, which is just a hellhole. But, I just said, I'll go on all the platforms again, knowing they'll kick me off. Maybe I'll put something up and then they'll shadow ban me or whatever it is. But yeah, I was really disgusted with that monetary thing of paying for stuff. And then they just turn you off. And I would tell people, I did a thing on my show called Vaccine Week. So I did 7 straight shows of all the stuff with vaccines. And I had some big names on there. And the week after I did that week, like the Monday, it's the internet. You can find where anybody lives. You can find where anybody's going to be. So I get a little box delivered UPS, is about the size of like you'd get like a coffee mug delivered, right? And maybe a little bit bigger. I open it up, and inside was a little dead bunny rabbit with its throat slit wrapped in plastic and a handwritten note that said, "Stop what you're doing." So I would get stuff like that when I had the show. I got sued. When I did Vaccine Week, I got a couple lawsuits, and you can't just throw that stuff in the trash. You have to tender it to an attorney, even if it's going to go away. So any money that I made from advertisers that stuck around, I think I had SD Bullion as like a sponsor for gold and silver. Any money that I collected went to do all of that stuff to tender all those lawsuits and make those go away. And so there was a heavy price. So I look at like what you're talking about and I see now it's like, wow, it's like Wild West out there. People can do whatever they want. And I think that's a canary in the coal mine. People better beware if they're getting their living, if you're paying your bills, your mortgage, supporting your family, paying the heating bills off of your YouTube channel, and there's no backup plan. Take it from a guy that was turned off like one day, like a water spigot. It's just gone, and they changed the rules.
They do. No, they do. And you do have to be very careful, especially on a platform like YouTube. I mean, that particular topic with the vaccines, I found that it's time sensitive. So you weren't allowed to talk about it when it was happening. That's when you get shut down. But now, after the fact, when the narrative has kind of changed a little bit, and now evidence is coming out saying, they did do damage, and it is a complete problem on a
your
large
feed
scale,
is loaded with nonstop stuff that you couldn't say ever back in that time, right?
Yeah. So I've always been careful. I've always if an event suddenly happens, do not talk about it until at least a few months after the fact.
Paul, I say do exactly the opposite. If you're going to tell the truth, go full tilt on it and just let the chips fall where they may, right?
Well, you can, but you have to be careful about how you talk about it then. Use code words. Be clever about the plausible deniability is your friend when it comes to this game. If you want to go for like the longevity I found, talk about it, but talk about it in a way where they know what you mean, but some people may not know what you mean. It's like you have to be clever about it.
I get what you're saying on that, and I've struggled with this many times because I want to just tell people the info. I've spent a lot. I used to have my Sea Crane radio when I was a kid, like 7th grade, right? And I had a little shortwave radio, and I used to listen to Bill Cooper on shortwave radio and Art Bell and all the old timers. And I remember listening to Alex Jones when he was first coming out on shortwave radio. Now, a lot of my feelings and opinions and viewpoint have changed. And a lot of those things I think were psyops. So like, a guy like Jones, for example, he gives you a lot of meat to chew on, but they never give you those final keys that would unlock the whole mystery that we're trying to solve here of what's going on in the world. So I think, again, they're controlled. You don't get to be that big and not be controlled. And, what's that saying? I can't remember who said it, but if you want to control everything, control both sides of the argument. So I think that's going on. But I mean, like you said, it's completely noticeable. And going back to your point, all I was going to say was it's tough because you want to tell people exactly in the raw, brutal truth. This is what's happening here. And you're like mentally ill if you don't get excited and get, the feeling that you want to shout this from the rooftops when you learn about things and people are just like zombies. I don't know. I don't want to hear that and all those things. So it's tough to sugarcoat it because I used to have guests come on and say, we got to put this out slowly. People have to assimilate. And I'm like, I'll be 90 years old and my children and great grandchildren will have been completely enslaved because we thought we had to take it smooth and slow. So I fight with that too. I want to get it all out and just throw it out. Let the truth.
I do understand that desire and that need to do that. I was like that when I first started my channel. Like I was in like a war with the map community, like these pedophiles trying to normalize pedophilia, you know what I mean? And I was like, absolutely hell no, not a chance. I was screaming in my videos, and pointing it out, saying, look at what these bastards are doing over here, trying to normalize this. Shame on you, Vanity, for publishing these articles, going all out and everything. And that came with massive backlash, strikes, all sorts of problems, you know what I mean? And I found like, yes, that's great, and that does reach people in a certain way. But I've realized if I want to do this for a long time, then you kind of have to play your timings right. It's not about not telling them the truth. It's about having tact while telling them. And I find the bigger reaction you generate, the more eyes they get on you, the less chance you have of like not being someone complaining somewhere. And
as you know, you don't want to convince anybody of anything. You want them to start asking questions when something goes off, like, oh, that I've heard of that topic before, or that's something I need to go deeper in and look at. Okay, I'm going to go on my own journey, because you can't wake people up to make them believe like you believe. They have to get there on their own.
Exactly. It's a hard lesson to learn, though, because like I said, when you do first wake up, you do just want to tell everybody. You want to slap people around the face. You want to shake them. You want to grab their head and make them look at it and say, look at this. Like,
you want to start a podcast and broadcast live every day and tell the world, right?
But I've been doing this for like over a decade, and it's kind of like I realized I've learned a thing or two from that time. And I have a whole tips for truthers dedicated to the how do we tell people the truth effectively. And I find less is actually more in a lot of cases. Give them hints and let them go off and find out for themselves. And find those people who are screaming it out there, balls to the wall, who cares? Because they're all out there and they're doing a great job. And hats off to them, on the front lines of the vanguard, I would call them, the ones going in first, just trying to flatten the place down for the rear guard to come in and like clean up, And I like to think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I'm just like
Paul, maybe you need to start another channel called like Full Tilt Truth and just go off the rails on that one.
Maybe who knows? I mean, like I said, I've got backups in case the YouTube disappears in a way. I've still got the podcasting thing. I've got my book as well, and I feel like I could probably come back pretty quick if something happened through some other thing. Probably wouldn't be that terrible, but at the same time, if I had to go back into the workforce, then I'd just go and do that. I had a good ride. That's kind of how I'm saying it. Like, as long as God will allow me, I'll keep riding this wave. That's all I can really hope for,
in all honesty, I was really discouraged because I did a couple hundred interviews on all these topics. And I'm not a guy that believes in war and violence. I think if the truth was known by the masses, there wouldn't need to be a need for all these other things that people would just know. Oh, that's the truth. Yeah, here's where we come from. Here's what we're supposed to be doing here. Here's where we go when we die. This is the real truth. Here's the 3 items. And maybe we throw in the truth about the rock that we're sitting on, that it's not a floating marble flying through space on random and we're all evolved from pond scum. And maybe throw some free energy in there that we don't need to have petrochemicals and fossil fuels to run the car and heat the home. If they gave everybody that manual at birth and these are the rules of the game, that would take care of it all. There would be no need, I think, for militaries and police, and because people would be like, oh, that's what happens and that's where I come from and that's what we're supposed to be doing here. And you guys know that, and here's the rules. Okay, I think 99.9% would police themselves and it would be a better world. And of course, there's going to be that small fraction of percentage of people that just can't play by the rules or just can't get along, and that would have to be dealt with. But yeah, I think the thing for me was, I don't know if we can change this. I think it might be all written in the book exactly as it is, yet we are supposed to stand up, as we're told, and speak out when we see wrongdoing and injustice, and know that we have to endure to the end. We can't give up. So that gives me some comfort. Like, I can't change the world. I can't make everybody see these things, but I'm supposed to stand up in my way when I can, either through music, through songs, through doing the radio show. But I don't know if we can change it, and I have to be okay with that and just endure to the end. You can't throw in the towel and can't give up.
I agree. I think you were saying earlier, like, oh, if we don't push hard, I'm going to be 90 by the time everyone realizes. I don't think so. I think we're in that time now. I made a video about this just yesterday on my last live show, and I've coined this phrase called the truth of singularity. I'm stealing from the enemy.
I like that.
Because they have the transhumanist singularity. They're working towards this point where they'll live forever as gods in robotic bodies once they reach that singularity moment where technology and biology and all the sciences converge into one moment where it's perfect, and then nothing will be the same afterwards. I'm saying, well, while they're building that, doing that crazy stuff over there, we over here have been doing the same thing in the truth movement. We've been building up towards this point where there's no going back for the truth. Like, it's going to hit a point where enough people know it that it's going to spiral out of control.
The tipping point, like auto-tune, when you never heard about it and now it's everywhere, right?
Exactly. I feel like we're there now. I think anybody and everybody has a truth podcast these days. I think everybody, to some degree or level, again, stealing their phrases like Freemasonic degrees, but I'm saying to some level, everybody's kind of become initiated in the truth. They kind of figured it out.
Paul, do you think that's because people like me and you and your listeners and your whole crew that know about these things, do you think that because we're in the conspiracy bubble and then you go out into the world? Like, I went to Costco today, right? Which is the big you guys have Costco's in the UK? That's
we
like
actually
the big
do.
Warehouse store. Okay.
We actually do, yeah. Surprisingly.
So you know what that's like around holiday time. I mean, it's like Grand Central Station. I counted 9 people wearing masks, and 2 of them were wearing gloves. So they're still out there.
I feel like almost older generations may be too far gone. Don't get me wrong. Right? I have a lot of hope with the new generations. I think they are completely plugged in and clued in. and they're going to grow up knowing the truth, like, and with no illusions to what's really going on. They have nothing, and they know who took it from them. Like, I think they know, and they're going to grow up into the world as adults, questioning everything and trusting no authority. I think we're at that point.
Do you
All the
think they're
generations,
in the
probably not so
generation
much.
like mine, and a little bit older, where they think if we just vote harder, if we just get our guy in a couple of years, they're going to fix it for us? And do you
I
think
think
they
that
don't buy into any of that?
I don't think they buy into any of that, really. No, if they do, they're a minority in their generation. And I think even in older generations, I think that illusion's falling apart. I think they're starting to realize, oh, it doesn't matter who we vote for, and it never did. I think they're starting to realize that now. I think everything's becoming a bit obvious. Like, okay, evil people who perhaps believe in the devil might be in control of everything. I think they're actually starting to
Right.
see that. But then it's varying degrees of how much are they willing to admit it. I think everyone knows, but I think maybe like a good portion have suppressed it and just fingers in the ears right now. But there's only so long they can go on before they have to admit to themselves we've been played and
I
something
get
horrible's
so
going on.
discouraged sometimes because I'm kind of in my bubble and I'm not interested in listening to nonstop conspiracy shows and podcasts because I've already done that. I've spent my whole life researching these topics and reading books.
Mhm.
Like I touched on the little season one time when I had my show and it really never took off. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay. So I'm so glad that you have you brought that back. I know you buried it a little bit there and you want to move on from it, but I was so excited to see you kind of spark everything. I think you were one of the main guys, if not the guy that got that kicked up again. That's interesting to me because all the other stuff of the secret societies and 9/11 and the false flags and all those things, right? Man, I've been there 100 times before. Give me something new. So that was an exciting thing for me. So I commend you for that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, well, that particular topic it's a lens for all the other theories that you just mentioned. It's a way to view why do these things
It brings
happen.
everything into a clearer
Yeah.
picture, and it actually, I heard people talking, oh, that actually brings you farther from faith. No, that brings me closer to faith and shows me perhaps the word of God just as written in the Bible is maybe exact. Maybe there's some differences, maybe there's some things that have been embellished or not. That's a different conversation, but that brought the clearer picture. And I've heard you say this, why do we have to interpret everything that's in the Bible and make it mean something else to where it fits the the mold of what they want it to fit? Let's just take it for as it's written. It could be exactly as it's written, and that makes a lot of sense with the little season. I just saw a video from JT before we get on here, and he was showing some old maps. It was like a quick little reel on Instagram, and he was talking about how Chicago had a different name, but it's on an old map, very similar. San Francisco. And then he showed where Antarctica looks very similar to what Australia looks like on the coast. It's a sheer drop off 1,000 feet high or whatever the elevation is, but it looks literally like they were spread apart at some point in
Mhm.
time. Because
Yeah.
as
Well,
and many of your listeners know, there's structures all over the world that have the same architecture, look exactly the same, yet they were supposed to be built and constructed by people that never communicated with each other, never knew each other, couldn't reach each other. So yeah, that's another interesting topic.
that again, I love that topic. Again, like you said, I spent a good year of my life just dedicated to it, absolutely dedicated to it, talking about it every day, every week, communicating with the people out there who are also talking about it, getting together, starting a community, and yeah, I still believe it, and it's 100% the truth. As far as I'm concerned, I think we are in that little season. Satan's last season is a nice way to frame it if you don't want to give the credit, because that's exactly what it is. And we're right around the corner from the new heaven and earth, and we're not waiting for the tribulation Revelation 16 event to unravel. We're way past it. And I believe that. And I think that explains everything. It explains why we have a conspiracy to understand. It explains why secret societies all suddenly came into existence in like 1776
Just to
onwards.
hide it and cover it all up.
Exactly. Yep. To hide it all, claim ownership of the buildings, the remnants of that. And they have systematically been erasing that knowledge and that memory from our collective history. But they can't get rid of it all because it was too big. And we have finally noticed who the hell built all this? Like it suddenly clicks, like this doesn't actually make any sense. And you can only make sense of it if you start to actually go down what the Bible told us would happen.
Yeah, going back to our original point, it really makes the Bible make a lot more sense and the timeline and all those different things. So for me, it brought me closer to God, closer to the story, and kind of gave me, I'm not going to say a sense of calm, but kind of a sense of calm. Like, okay, this is as it's supposed to be. Doesn't mean you still don't stand up and speak out against things that you see are wrong and,
Mhm.
plant the flag, so to speak. But yeah.
I feel like finally, it gives Christians permission to boldly stand behind the book as it is written, rather than trying to make it fit the world's narrative of what they've told us history is. Because I think a lot of Christians are scared to do that because they look foolish in the past. Well, it says here that the Earth is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old. But we know from science it's actually millions of years old. It's kind of, well, is it? How do you know that? And finally, now we have answers to say you're wrong. We've been lied to, and this is why. And this is why the Bible is correct. It's like, oh, it's been 2,000 years. Where is he? That argument these naysayers saying. It's kind of like, it hasn't been 2,000 years. And he did keep his promise, and he did establish his millennial reign, and we have evidence for it. That's answers, finally, that Christians didn't have in the past. So when you say, like I said, it's strengthened your faith, I'd say yes. This is like, once you get to grips with what it means, this is 100% like a faith strengthener. In fact, you can drop faith. You can know. Like, that's the point. It's like, I like, finally we can get no like being browbeaten or, oh, I don't really know. I don't know why it's been 2,000 years. We don't have these signs we need to look out for. None of that nonsense anymore. It's like, no, he did return. He kept his word to those people in that time. He established his kingdom. And we are at the end of it right now. And all the evidence is here that he walked this earth with his saints. It's right there. You just need to open your eyes and pay attention for once. And it's kind of like, I don't care what the world tells me. I don't care what the men who wrote the history books tell me. I believe what Jesus said, full stop. And that's it. I think that's wonderful to give people that knowing finally to stand up, and it doesn't destroy your salvation. It doesn't change the Great Commission to go out and make disciples of men in any way, shape, or form. And the work needs doing. Go out there and make the world less miserable for other people by sacrificing yourself for them, just as Jesus did. Go and walk as he walked while we're here. God's in control. He has his plan. It is going to play out how it's going to play out. But our role is simply to manifest the kingdom on earth as much as we possibly can until he comes and finishes the job and actually brings the new heaven and earth. That's it, because that's wonderful news, right? It's more good news. The news is already good enough. Now it's even better. I love that topic. And yeah, look, I don't talk about it as much on my channel, but I talk about it when this happens, when people ask me about it. And that's kind of how I keep going with it every now and then. And like podcasts ask me about it, and I'll tell them everything I can possibly know. But I feel like on my channel, I've got a year's worth of work right there for you to go and sink your teeth into. Go and do it. Like, it's sitting there waiting. What else can I say? I was a broken record by the end of it, saying the same things over and over again. But I've got it all there. And JT's carry. I'm actually talking to him again soon at the end of the week, so we'll probably catch up as well. So it's not like I've like left it behind. I'm not. I'm still there. It's just I want this channel to reach other people in other places as well. And I felt like it was becoming a bit too just a little season. And that's not what I ever wanted to just be on this channel, That's all it is. But yeah.
I haven't done any research on if people are co-opting it and then taking it and manipulating, and guys with big platforms are taking it and kind of distorting it so people get pushed. Okay, we know about this. We have to talk about it. People are starting to learn about it, but we got to push them over in this bucket over here so they really don't learn the truth. Are you seeing that at all?
Yeah.
What do they do? What do they take with it? Do they just completely distort it? And
they tend to try and throw into the mix racial politics, identity stuff. I've noticed a lot of that. Well, who are the real Israelites then, and who's the true bloodlines? And they dwell on genealogies again. And he gets into that kind of stuff. I tend to find there's a lot of misrepresentation from bigger channels who discuss the topic as well. Like, they'll cover it, but they'll just completely miss all the points that were actually meant to be made, and breathe over them to try and keep people locked into the futurist ideology. If not outright, just accuse us of being evil, deceivers,
heretics, or
heretics, or something like that. I find there are a lot of Catholic or Orthodox types who hear what we say, and in a way they kind of want to make it about their church. And there's a lot of that as well. And I think all the churches are corrupted in this little season. I don't think any of them can be trusted whatsoever. I think that's the point. I think they are perhaps remnants of what was during the reign, but what they are now is not what was then. But they want
to keep people completely off the target, push them over here so they don't really realize. Yeah,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
find when
This is
if
that.
I ever talk to people about this in public, if I always tell people, if you ever want to, like you have a neighbor at the end of the driveway or something you want to get rid of because they're that annoying neighbor, just say, "Hey, have you ever heard of the flat Earth or chemtrails? Boy, they're gone. You'll never talk to them again." It's a good way
Yeah,
to
it's
do it.
true.
This topic seems to do that now too, and I've had people get mad at me like, "Oh, you're not a brother in Christ," or "That's like you said, a heretic." And to me, it's the exact opposite. I always told people with conspiracies that we know, let's take a topic, for example, and I'll use the chemtrail one. I don't know if we can say that here, but I just said it, edit it out if you want. But
No, you can.
um, yeah, what I was going to say was with that topic, I don't have all the answers either. I probably did a week's worth of shows over my 2 or 3 years on that topic, bringing different people on. I just put it in buckets. Here's bucket A. It's possibly this is what they're doing with it, or it's possibly bucket B. This is what they're doing. But it's not, oh, they are doing it or they're not doing it. We know those stripes are in the sky. We know all those things that are going on, the chemicals that are in it and stuff. So I'm not coming and saying, hey, I have the answer of exactly what it is because I don't know. And that's the same thing with this little season topic. But yeah, it's like a calming, and it's brought me closer to the word that, yeah, we're exactly as we're supposed to be here, whether for better or for worse.
Amen. I mean, this is another thing as well. Like people say, like, "Oh, you're just biblically illiterate if you think this is the case. You just haven't read your Bible." It's kind of like, actually, I think I've
That's
read my
not you. I
Bible.
know that from just listening to your show as often as I can. You are more well versed than half the preachers and ministers out there giving sermons every Sunday.
I don't know about that. Maybe not, but what I can say is I've never read my Bible more than when I was researching the whole season. Do you know what I mean? I was like
Yeah.
heavily into the word, like a year straight, just looking through anything I can find. And that's what it does to you. It makes you finally like on fire for the word of God. It's kind of like I have to read it with new eyes. What did I miss? You know what I mean? What did I miss the first time around when I was just an ignorant baby Christian just trying to find Jesus, and just reading the basic gospels, which are great and necessary. And that's what it's really all about. Then the details kind of go over your head a little bit until then you find this topic way years after the fact. It's kind of like, wait a minute, this makes sense now. If I go back, you start going back and rereading things. It's kind of like new eyes, to see what was trying to be told. And it's kind of like it's incredible. And I don't think this is in any way like a biblically illiterate theory. I think this is actually more biblically accurate than most of the other theories we have around, which have to jump through many gymnastic hoops to get to where the conclusions they get to. About like the whole dispensationalist concept as well, and it's the idea that we have to like I come quickly doesn't really mean quickly. Like it's kind of no, that's a metaphorical term. It's like, oh, you standing here will not taste death. No, well, he meant the transfiguration the next bit afterwards. All right, so who standing there did die then? Because you said
Every
some won't
sentence
take.
has to be interpreted and
That's what I mean.
manipulated. Yeah. Yeah.
To try and justify to pigeonhole it into the historical narrative we've been told by man. You have to account for what about the Crusades and Islam and all these thousands of years and these empires and all this history we have. It's kind of like it doesn't work. It doesn't fit. It's kind of, well, who wrote that history? Like who documented that timeline? Who made that chronology? And you look into it, it's like none of them. You can't trust any of those people. Like they clearly made a lot of it up as well. It's kind of just we have trusted man over God. That's the problem. And a few hundred years of that is enough to erase thousands of years. It really is. It doesn't take long to brainwash people. It only takes like 2 generations with the schools to completely change opinions from people and to rewrite history. It doesn't. I think people have imagined that it takes more. I think that pride is the issue. It's like, oh, we know so much. We're so much more.
We wouldn't fall
today.
for that, and it would have to be more complex for us to fall for this. Yeah, but I think it's happening.
We have experts who know these things. We have archaeologists and we've got anthropologists who know this stuff. They've done the work, I assume.
I rely on them for the truth. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, have they done the work? Are you sure about that? And that's the problem. Like, as conspiracy theorists, I think it was easier for me to already question everything to then accept this topic into the fold, because I already don't trust any of these people who've told me what history is already. I was already way like I don't trust any of them. So when it comes to this, it's like finally, like no longer do I have to like defend the faith. Do you get what I mean? It's like it takes that away, that unknowing. It's no longer like, oh well, I guess I'll find out when I get to heaven. Nope, I figured he's told this is it now. The truth has been revealed. This is
Yeah.
what's really going on, and this is where we are, and this is who we are. And it's an incredible feeling. And I honestly, I don't feel ashamed to talk about it. I don't care if people call me a heretic. I don't care if people want to lie and say this is biblically inaccurate. I would say you need to question what your pastor has taught you and where he learned his theology from. That's the
Yeah, I
problem.
wonder how
See,
many of them are
you know,
getting grief now and asked to look at this topic. I commend you, man. I raise a glass to you, and good job to bring it back and do what you did with it.
it was no, but at the same time, I was kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie, like it was really upsetting because I was here just some guy in the northwest of England with a YouTube channel, looking at this interesting topic and talking about it, and then people started gathering, saying, "What did you just say? What?" You know, and it's snowballed. And everyone else got involved. Other channels started popping up, and other channels were already talking about it before me, all connecting together. And next thing we know, we have this huge community. And I have people like telling me things like, "This is incredible." You know, people like giving me tithes, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, who am I? I'm literally just some dude who started talking too much about a topic I thought was interesting." And people are telling me, you know, I've learned more from you about God and Jesus than I've learned from my pastors all this time. And I'm like, are you joking me? Like, what
No, I think you should be comforted
should
in
have
that.
been?
I would agree with that sentiment exactly. I'm not saying that you should run for like Prime Minister of the UK or anything like that. Is
I
it
wouldn't
Prime
want to.
Minister? Is that what you have over there? Right?
It is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should get some merch for Little Season merch, but that might be a little much after that. But no, man,
I'm
all
not interested in
seriously,
that.
and you know, as being a lifelong conspiracy theorist, that was a topic that, like you said, invigorated you and like, oh, this is interesting. This is, I have to
Mm.
go after this. You've been through all the other stuff before. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, it still saddens me that that's where people have to go now to get any teaching on the Bible, people like me on the internet. And it's like, I was not bred for this. I don't know if I'm even right half the time. But, you know, I'm just saying stuff that I think is interesting and theorizing. But it turns out that people aren't getting that in the churches and they're craving it, you know, and they have these questions that the pastors are not answering. And I think it's sad that someone like me has to be the person to fill that void in people's lives. And
Paul,
it's a
have you
shame.
thought about taking it on the road, like a Nephilim Clown Little Season tour across the UK and beyond, live performances and talks?
I've been invited to the odd thing here and there, like
No,
presentations
I'm
and
talking a full tilt, get the tour bus, get the van, and hit the road.
Oh, I've got two young children. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Maybe when I'm older and the kids have left the nest, you know, and I don't know. Maybe I'm more ingrained and established, I suppose. But
Man, you
it's not
take it on
really.
the road and you will really get a rude awakening of how nuts it can get out there and how mad people can be at you in the physical. I mean,
Well,
it gets wild out there.
I'm already aware of how crazy people can get over this type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a sacred cow that I've seen to have poked with this topic, you know. Which is one of the many reasons I've kind of backed away as well. It was getting a little bit too crazy, like the crazies were coming out of the woodwork. And yeah, I made promises to family. It's kind of like I'll ease off it a little bit because it's too much for them as well. And I don't want to put
Sure.
that on them. It's just a shame, you know. And at the same time, I was like, I'm not leaving it behind. I'll still talk about it and I'll still support the community in every way I can. But I find like there's other things I also want to flesh out and talk about and get people there. And to get them to that topic, you have to go through so much first. Like there's so much you have to. It's a really advanced like understanding. It's the end of the rabbit holes. It's the bottom of the warren. You know what I mean? It's kind of
It's
to get
crazy
them
how
there.
it makes all the other things go below it as like, you know, it's like the top and then it makes so many other conspiracies. Pretty much all of them make complete sense as to why they're happening. It really does put a bow on it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people still need pushing into the rabbit hole first. They need actually to get in it and start digging, you know, and that's kind of what my channel's for, is to get them there. So
You were
if this,
talking about
yeah.
not screaming and not being, you know, too histrionic and stuff in your delivery and things like that. And I always have to remind myself, somebody asks me a question about something or I see something happen in the world and I quickly go, oh, that's because of this, because they're doing that, or because they're doing this, or that's not like they say, it's really this. And people, majority of people in the world, I think, maybe I'm wrong on the percentages, but they have no point of reference, no point of contact. So when you say, yeah, you know, they're spraying us in the sky like bugs every day, they've never even looked up and seen the stripes in the sky. So they think you're like an alien from outer space. Yeah. They have
Oh
no
no,
point of
that's a
context.
cloud, right? That's just a
Yeah.
cloud. Yeah, yeah, I know. But chemtrails was actually one of my major topics on my channel. It's one of the first videos I made years and years ago. I would have buried on some hard drive somewhere, because I actually joined an activist group in the local area where I was living at the time, um, to go and give out leaflets about chemtrails to people. And I was there, boots on the ground, and I was interviewing all these people.
What kind of a response did you get from the man on the street
Oh,
interviews?
they thought we were crazy. They absolutely thought we were batshit insane,
While
and
they're telling you that, yet they never even tilt their head and look up to see the stripes, right?
yeah, well, there's one guy walking around with this huge sign that says "Research Chemtrails" with an exclamation mark on him. It's like bigger than like as big as him, just above his head. Just walk, and we were going around giving these leaflets out, and I was really more interested in gauging how the public would perceive something like this. That's what I was actually there to find out. Like what do people think of this type of stuff who don't know anything about it, and most of the public were making a laughing stock of them. But I would say there was always the one or two that was like interested, like what's this all about? What's going on here? But the BBC radio station, BBC Humberside, it was, because this was the east of England when I was at uni. They did a very small segment on it, I think before the weather, like literally 30 seconds. And and I have it on the video, and he says, "Oh, it turns out an activist group, the anti-weather modification northeast group or something like this, is having a meeting to protest chemtrails." And it says, "What do you think of that?" To his co, he says, "Oh, crackpots. They're all absolute crackpots. That's what I have to say about that." It says, "Crackpots, that's strong words." Well, they are, right? They're absolutely insane, aren't they? Chemtrails. And they had a laugh about it. How ridiculous, Um, and then
What
said,
year would that have been? What year?
that would have been 2012 or around about 2013 period.
Yeah.
So it's quite a while ago, and they had that segment and they're just like, ha, laughing it off as a thing. But the joke's on them. I might get that clip, put it on a video again, and then show the UK government literally announcing, "Oh, we're going to spray you to block out the sun to reduce UV rays to help with global warming."
You never get an apology, though. They never call you and say, "You were right. Why don't you come on and talk about it?" That never happens.
Yeah. But there's actually UK policy now to spray and block out the sun in order to reduce UV rays, in order to reduce global warming. He's actually.
I mean, think of Dane Wigington, who's like the godfather of the chemtrails, and he's got the dimming documentary. I don't align with all the reasons he says why and things like that. And that's okay. Again, that's one of those buckets. But I mean, he's devoted his entire life to that. I have so much respect for him because he just keeps going. Every week he puts out a new video talking about it. And he has the persistence and the commitment to it. So I commend him for that.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to die on. It's a tough hill to die on and put your whole entire life on, because it's such a hard one for most people to accept. Like the sky is huge. It's this massive, enormous. You can't even comprehend how large the sky is. When you actually really look up and think about it. And most people don't look up, like you said. They're too scared to, because of the philosophical implications of looking up and having to think about what it means.
They have to think a little deeper on what's beyond that, or where's the roof, or what's going on outside there. Yeah.
So when you try and tell them, "Oh, by the way, they can control the weather and they're doing it through this," it's just too much. It's like, no, my framework.
They wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's like I cannot accept that as a reality. Like, it's impossible for me to integrate that into my life. I have too much going on. I'm too busy. I have too much else to worry about to try and consider that I may be being poisoned every single day.
And that's by design as well. They manipulate the world, and it's getting worse and worse every day. I mean, now look at the economy. Look at how people have to work. Everybody in the household has to work just to keep food on the table. That's all by design. We know that, You're talking about dying on the hill. That's what I did with the vaccine and mask issue. I publicly said I would do no concerts with masks or vaccine mandates. And I got turned off. I got blackballed like instantaneously when that hit the news wire from any opportunities that I would have going forward. Yeah. But I'm glad I did it.
I'm glad you did it too, because look, you don't need them. You don't need those systems or their platforms. Come and talk to me instead, and let's get people to listen to your music through my platform. Do you want to maybe get into that now? We'll start talking about like that experience, this time in your life.
Yeah, wherever you want to go. I'm in your hands here.
Because I'm interested, because obviously as somebody who's is a musician who's doing gigs, you actually hold a world record. Is that correct?
I do, and I hope that's not viewed as like a globalist New World Order record, because it's the Guinness Book World of Records, right? I'm a child of the 80s, so growing up, we watched shows like That's Incredible and the Guinness World Records book. that was in every Toys R Us at Christmas time. It was like a phone book, and like, wow, that's the holy grail of accomplishment. Yeah, it's interesting because, I did music. My brother and I did music our whole lives up until like 20s, early 20s. And then our grandfather was a businessman. He had a printing and advertising company in Chicago. And we eventually moved out to Arizona. But I always saw my Gramps as like the epitome of success. Suit and tie every day. He had the fedora, drove the fancy Cadillac and stuff. And he was a businessman, and everybody respected him in town. So I kind of just, when the music wasn't working out early in my 20s, I said, you know what? I'm going to put that on the shelf. I'm going to go into the business world. And I did that, did a couple different things, and became an insurance broker, and did that for a couple of years. I was very successful. And in that business, you want to own, my goal was always to own my own shop, own my own agency. So you work at a couple other offices, building up what they call your book of business, your clientele. And then I bought that book of business from the gentleman I was working at and went and started my own. And I started that in 2006. Probably not the best time to start your own insurance brokerage, because I did what's called energy and construction. So mining, heavy industrial construction, big policies and big swings with the markets. But everything in the economy that crashed in '08 started to crash in my business in '07. So I'm paying, I think I had about a $25,000 payment every month on that book of business that I bought. And all those clients started to go out of business in 2007. And so now I'm paying for an income stream I no longer have. So I tried to right the ship so many times, tried to restructure my debt. I just couldn't do it. And the fatal mistake I made, which I take full responsibility for, as an insurance broker, with what I did, I had a trust account. So all of the insurance premiums come into that account, and then the carriers get paid. You take your commission out of there. And there's a lot of money in that account. And as I was losing clients and going upside down, I took money, which is illegal, out of that trust account to try to keep the doors open, pay salary, pay the bills, and keep things going. And I thought, you know what? I know this is wrong. I take full responsibility for it. I knew I was at a crossroads, but I said, I'm going to take a little money out of there, pay the bills, and I'll be able to put it back and get the business back and going, and everything will be fine. And the exact opposite happened. I lost more business, and then I eventually had to close down, and now I've committed that crime. And I eventually had to go out of business. About a year later, after doing that, I get indicted by the government, Arizona State, and they were inviting you for, like you're a mini Bernie Madoff here, money laundering, any wire transfer over 10 grand was like a class 2 felony. So these were heavy charges. So I had to deal with all that legal. And I'll make this story very short. There's two important elements to this. At my lowest point, I had a couple $1,000,000 of life insurance left. And not to get too gruesome with it, but there's suicide clauses on insurance, on health insurance, or life insurance rather. And I had passed those, and I had a couple million of insurance left. And I said, I'm going to take a drive and put a gun on my mouth and turn the lights off, and all the bills will get paid, and I'll see everybody on the other side. And so I planned that for about a month, and I'm embarrassed to say that I did that. And I researched the best way to do it and all those things. And I finally took a drive one day up to the mountains of Arizona. I wrote my letter to say goodbye to my family and why I was doing it. And the other thing was, nobody knew any of this was going on. I kept it all to myself. And I took a drive one day and put the gun in my mouth, and I was like a split second from pulling the trigger. I mean, it was right there. And I said in my mind, God, I don't want to do this. If you help me get through this, I'll take full responsibility for everything I've done, and I'll use it to do some good. I had no idea what that meant. I just said that in my mind. And I put the gun down, and God answered that prayer. And I didn't take my life that day. And if you figure visually, I was up in the mountains of Arizona, came back to the valley of the sun, they call it, and dealt with all the junk. And that was like a year and a half, 2 years of all the legal. And I remember going before the judge because I had to plead to one count. They plead it all down and give you a deal. And I remember my attorney saying to me, Scott, I can't do anything for you. You've already admitted what you've done. I had wrote emails to try to restructure my debt, and raised my hand when I got stuck and said, you guys got to help me through this. So I had all the paper trail of that with all the different insurance companies and regulatory agencies. And he said, all I can do is mitigate your prison sentence. That's the best I can do here. So I said, okay. So I go to court. I'll never forget it, in June of that summer in Arizona, and it's very hot. And I remember going down there, and I had to plead. Mr. Helmer, how do you plead? I plead guilty. That was the most demoralizing day of my life, to publicly have to say that. It was very embarrassing and all those different things. But I did that, and the judge goes, "Okay, I've got a lot of information to review on your case. I'll see you back here September 1st for your sentencing." So I always say, needless to say, that was the longest, hottest summer of my life, waiting to go to prison. And my attorney said, "You're going to go for a year, a couple of years." And so I was already making plans to do that. And I had the plan, when I got done, I was going to get out and tell my story to the world, that no matter how bad things get, you can make a comeback, and suicide is never the answer. And that was my message. And I was planning on what I was going to do. And I knew I was going to do that with music, right, in some capacity. So I go to September 1st, go down to court, and the only thing that kept me out of jail and not going to prison was, they scooped all my records, and they saw that I didn't spend the money on frivolous things. They saw that I was really paying the rent payment for the offices, salaries, paying insurance premiums, things like that. And I remember the attorney said, or the judge said, "Mr. Helmer, I don't know why you're here in my courtroom today. You reached out so many times to ask for help, and nobody helped you." And remember, this is 2011 now, right? A couple of years after the 2008 crash. And he goes, "I think if people knew what was going to happen in the world in 2008, they would have been a bit more apt to help you. So I want you to go back, pay the debt back, and get on with your life and be a productive member of society." So that's what I did. Walked out of that courtroom, and I borrowed a pickup truck from my mom and started traveling America doing fundraisers. Basically, wounded warriors, suicide prevention, anybody that would book me to play some music, have a good time, have a fundraiser, and have that message embedded that no matter how bad things get, you can always make a comeback, and suicide is never the answer. So that was the first thing. So, and I have to tell people, we're in one of the most difficult economic times I've ever seen. This is worse than '08, or I think it's going to get worse than '08. And, we don't have to get into specifics, but I know everyone's struggling. And I will tell everybody that's hearing my voice, suicide is not the answer. You can endure, you can make a comeback. Tell people that you're struggling, and people working together will help you get through whatever you need to get through. Because I did it all on my own for a long time, and I wish I would have asked for help sooner to get out of my mess. I've played probably, I don't know, a couple hundred fundraising shows, and we've raised a few $1 million. I think we're over about $4 million for those causes at those fundraising concerts. But the thing I learned was, a little 7-year-old girl that didn't get a date for the dance maybe wants to take her own life, or a middle-aged man that lost his job and his whole identity is built around his job for his family. That might be a reason he wants to take his own life. Or a kid, because his parents got divorced, they may want to do it. So I always tell people, go easy and with love in this world, because everyone's fighting a battle. Everybody's fighting and has some kind of internal struggle. And you may never know it. You may never see it. They may put on a good mask and not show it to you. But I've learned that whatever those people are going through, and I use my thing was, I lost all my money, and I was a disgrace to my family and my grandfather that I did that and took that money that didn't belong to me and used it to try to keep the business open. That was one of the most shameful things I could have ever done, and that was my reason. But what may seem like a frivolous thing to you and I, like, "Oh, I didn't get a date for the dance in 7th grade," that's a reason some people that may be the biggest thing in their life, that the biggest letdown or challenge they've ever seen. And so I always say, go easy and with love whenever possible in this world, because everybody's fighting a battle, right? So the Guinness thing. So that's kind of the backstory. And then I just started doing fundraising concerts and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's been a little part of my history. But when we hit the $1 million mark, I said, I got to do something cool, something special to commemorate that. So that's when I set out to do the Guinness World Record for most live concerts in 24 hours. And it was a charity event. So I had to do it 2 years in a row. The first year I did it, it went totally haywire. We did it the following year. I got the record. So there you go. If you could go to a Toys R Us or a Walmart and they still had those books, you could find it, but they don't even sell them anymore. I don't think so.
That's quite the story. Very inspirational. And yeah, I agree with the message, go easy and do it with love, because you do not know what people are going through.
And even though we may not agree with people politically, or they might be totally out in left field and not really know what we think is going on in the world and they're lost, we're all human beings. We all bleed red, and we're all created by God, and we all deserve a chance, and we try to move with love whenever possible. I know that might sound a little Hallmark card, but man, I've lived that. And I have to remind myself of that a lot when somebody does something or somebody aggravates me. But yeah, when I say my prayers every morning and every night, I remind myself of that and ask God to remember that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's another problem with, because obviously you also have this podcast as well, again, more conspiratorial.
Well, I did. I got kicked off in 2017, never to return to the airwaves again. I was going to do it, but I said that part is over.
Yeah, well, that kind of in a way took that music career away, didn't it? Which you were using as a means to get this message out to people and to change lives. And the bastards who took it away from you didn't realize that, I suppose, or maybe they did, and that's why they wanted to silence you even more, because this is a spiritual war at the end of the day, not a physical one. So who
yeah,
really,
well,
who really
I'll
knows?
tell you. I'll just to explain. No, I was going to say to explain that. So, like I said, I've been a conspiracy researcher my whole life. Ever since I can remember, I wanted to know what's really going on, who's behind the curtain, even on a very rudimentary level when I was a kid. So when I got that C Crane radio, shortwave radio, for people don't know what that is, shortwave is like how you could pick up crazy news, crazy radio shows and broadcasts before the internet, right? And it wasn't terrestrial radio. So I had this little radio, and I used to listen to guys like Bill Cooper, who's one of the godfathers of a lot of this stuff that we talk about. And I think, like I said, he and Art Bell and some of the other ones that maybe they knew, maybe they didn't, but they were kind of pushing people in different directions, especially with the alien thing and a lot. We could get into that, what my feelings are now, how it's changed. But so I used to listen to all that stuff. So a whole lifetime of listening to those things and researching kind of privately on my own. It was fine when it was just like my own thing. And to be honest with you, I never thought it was going to get so out of control in the world in my lifetime that I would feel compelled to spread the word. So I was doing, with the music thing, I'll tell you. So I did that business thing and was in the business world for many years. So I didn't get back into music until my mid to late 30s, right? I'm 51 now. So I'm never expected to be a star or have huge commercial success. I kind of just invented my own little thing to be able to create and perform music and travel and tour. And as long as I can do that, I don't need to be the biggest star or have a number one. I mean, it'd be nice to have a successful song that everybody knows about and you can get your messages out farther. But that was never the goal. It was about doing the work, creating and performing music. So after that, let it go where it goes. But I was a lifetime conspiracy researcher in my private life. So I felt, okay, I have to do something because this is getting out of control. And like I said, I'm not the guy that'll say, oh, go to the White House and storm the Capitol or go to the White House or start a civil war. That's all BS. They want you to do that because then they can control you. They can let stuff get order out of chaos, right? So they want a civil war. They want death and destruction. So I've always believed just let the truth, that there's a reason that's lasted so long. The truth will set you free because that takes care of everything. You can't, that's the truth. So we already know. Okay. So my thing was, I'm going to do a radio show. I love talk radio. I love listening to stories. So I'm just going to do a radio show and just bring guests on. And I think that will help the cause. And it really didn't. I got kicked off. I got banned. I lost. When I was doing the radio show, it really didn't affect my music too much because I kept them separate. And if I was backstage with like an artist or I was doing a show, it would be after show or before show conversation of just, hey, did you hear about this? Or you know about this topic? And people would just be like, man, I love that Scott. I love his music. He's a good performer, but he's got some crazy things he talks about, right? I was always that guy. He's the conspiracy guy. And it was kind of funny. Well, then I get kicked off the radio and the internet and all my stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm just going to go back to playing music because life is short. I'm getting older. That's the true thing I want to do. And maybe I'll infuse some of these things into my music. So then 2020 comes around and I immediately see what's happening because I did shows about this. I did shows with Carrie Mullis talking about PCR and how you can't diagnose illness with PCR and it's a research tool, and how Fauci wanted to do all of this in the 80s when he had vaccine immunity from the drug companies and they wanted to test the entire world with PCR testing for HIV. And if you got positive testing for HIV with PCR, if you tested positive with a test that doesn't test for illness, if you tested positive, then they had a whole series of vaccines to roll out to the entire world. So I put that on the shelf. So as soon as it happened in 2020, I said, oh, they're doing it. They're doing it. What he talked about, they're doing it right now. And I tried to tell everybody, texting everybody that was on my show, they're doing it. And we traded back and forth. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do a podcast again because I've done that. And I've really had financial consequences. Like I said, I had a lot of lawsuits. I lost all my sponsors. And, I'm just what you would call a working musician. I travel and tour and make enough money just to keep going with that, right? So I said, I can't go back and do that again because there was heavy financial consequences. Let other people do that. But what I will do, I'm not going to take the vaccine. I'm not going to wear a mask, and I'm not going to play any shows with vaccine or mask mandates. And I'm going to put a press release on the wire so it goes everywhere. Now, remember, I've opened for a lot of big bands in my, genre of the legacy acts, a lot of bands people would know of. And it's a very small community of music managers that manage and book those artists, right? So maybe a dozen at most. And I've made personal relationships with many of them. And I thought, it's honest. So I did a song protesting the vaccines and did the official announcement that I wouldn't do any shows. I got offered 2 big tours as the opening act. I won't say the names of who they were, but they're classic rock bands. And several of my friends still work for them, and they feed their families as being part of their crew. So I didn't want to throw them under the bus. But I said, I'm publicly going to come out and state my position. That will be my way to protest this and have some activism. And I thought it would inspire people to do the same. It didn't. I thought I would get massive traction and coverage from the alternative media, many of which were on my show as guests when I had my show. The exact opposite happened. Specifically, which really aggravates me to this day, I had Rob Dew, who's Alex Jones's producer, on my show. We had a great conversation. We talked conspiracy, a little about his life, and that was back, 3-4 years earlier. And I had a couple other his guys on my show as guests. And when I reached out to them directly and said, hey, I wrote a vaccine protest song, and I've got this position publicly, here's the press release, they ignored me and flat out declined to cover it and said, we're not going to have you on as a guest. And it really upset me, to be honest with you. And it really just it was like, okay, it opened my eyes a lot more to how fraudulent a lot of the alternative media is, because there was only a few outlets that covered it. And needless to say, I killed all those relationships with those music managers that used to have me open for those artists or would have had me open in the future. It totally blackballed me. But as I said, I'm glad I did it. But I thought it would have been, I saw Oliver Anthony when he came out with that song that just kind of talked about left-right politics. I think there might be a backstory of how that became so viral. That's another conversation. But I thought my protest song and my position would get worldwide coverage, and it got nothing, got buried. And I just lost all my work from it, lost a lot of concerts and booking opportunities. I got hundreds of emails from people. You're going to kill Granny. Don't you want to keep us safe? You're a crazy person. Go get your vaccines and your boosters. All the negative hate. I got all of it. And I was like a man without a country, because the exact thing I thought would happen, I'd get a little push from it and be able to tell more about this and get people woken up. The exact opposite happened. So sometimes it comes with a cost, right?
Well, I'm sorry that happened to you, the way it went
I appreciate that. We have to keep trucking, though, and we have to keep moving forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, cowardice, sadly, is a part of the human refrain, and a lot of people didn't want to lose their livelihoods over it. But many of them probably silently did agree with you. That's a sad thing.
I had several messages from those bands, camps, management, road managers, things like that, say, Scott, wow, I commend you. I agree with you, but I just bought a new house and we've got a big mortgage, or I got 2 kids in college. I can't lose this job. I tell people a lot, when you get into the business a little bit and you see a little bit behind the curtain, there's nobody that really becomes an organic household name. You have to have millions of dollars of marketing money, and they have to push the button on you to push you into the system. Now, some of my favorite bands, or music. They have great songs, and of course, you work with great producers. They might have great music, great production, all that stuff. But no, I don't think anybody really gets in there organically. I mean, there's even the story of Justin Bieber that everybody thought he was discovered on YouTube, yet that was a whole manufactured thing. He was already plugged into the system. They knew what they were going to do with him, but they wanted to make him look like he was an overnight sensation, that they discovered him. And I remember I did a show on that, and people talked about, because they wanted to get another generation of kids thinking they could make it big on YouTube videos to really pump all that stuff up. But like I tell people, unless they push the button on you, you're never going to break through the machine, I call it, right? And that's neither good or bad. It's just how the world is. You can apply that to everything. Modern art, TV, actors, movies, music. I think it applies to a lot of things. But yeah, it really came with the heavy costs. And I did get a lot of people that agreed, but just silently. And then I don't talk to them anymore. And they again, I'm that crazy conspiracy guy. And you can't go now with all the stuff that's come out that validates a lot of the things we were talking about. I've never gotten a call or a text from anybody saying, hey, you were right about that. Hey, oh my gosh, I should have listened to you. I've never gotten those. I'm waiting. I would like to get it, but I just haven't received it yet.
Well, they're probably too busy dealing with the consequences of all the bad decisions they made when they didn't listen to you. That's the problem. So they have their own problems, and they probably forgot about you because they're too busy in it now.
And I'm not the only one that was speaking out. I'll say that. I'm not the oracle of the information. I was just one guy. Know that I have a very short time here and wanted to do some good in the world and wanted to share the knowledge that I knew. That's all.
Well, that industry as well, as you can probably enlighten us a bit more about, is probably one of the most heavily controlled industries out there when it comes to the message. Right?
It's a propaganda delivery system that they've spent billions and not trillions of dollars to build, just like the television and the whole entertainment business. It's meant to deliver propaganda and brainwash people in a lot. It doesn't mean there's not some good songs and there's some good movies in there. There's all those things. That happens regardless. But, oh, yes. It's interesting. As a side note, I love all kinds of music, right? I'm a fan of a good song, so I don't care if it's produced country or rock or any genre you want to pick. But you have the right, which is a big, the patriot people, they call themselves here in America, and it's the MAGAs and all that kind of stuff, which is probably dwindling a little bit. It's getting nutty over there. But they're all big country music fans, a lot of them, right? And they look at George Strait, and I love George Strait. I love his voice. I love his songs. I've just always been a fan of George Strait. I was so disappointed when George Strait came out. Everybody's thinking it's Texas, it's free, you can do whatever you want, no masks or vaccines. He comes out and does a PSA to wear your mask and stay 6 feet apart. And I remember showing that to people, and the cognitive dissonance was just swirling around their head. Hey, what's going on here? I don't understand this. And I tell you, you got to understand, they're not going to screw up the money machine. When they're told to dance and do something, they dance, and they do exactly what they're told. I've seen that many times, behind the scenes and publicly.
I bet. I mean, you also obviously had a battle with Spotify, I believe. Is that right?
Okay, so here's another hill to die on. I come from the 80s and 90s when we owned our music, right? You went down to the record store and bought I was kind of coming out of LPs, but we got our cassette tapes and then CDs. And we were so proud of our big jumbo CD cases that held 300 CDs, and we had our whole music collection. That's what we did. And then
actually on that, for the younger generations who don't know what that means,
that's what I'm talking about right there. And that's like compact.
You got all the CDs, right?
Mine are down the way in the bus here, but I could go get you those. I got a half a dozen of those. What do you got? What's your favorite one that you haven't listened to in a while in there?
Oh,
anything jumping out at you?
I've got a lot of blues. I got Rachmaninoff here, so I got Buddy Rich. I got Jose Gonzalez. I did like that album, Veneer.
Well, Buddy Rich, so I started playing drums. That was my first instrument, and I got to see him live a couple times, and then I interviewed his daughter, Kathy Rich, on my show. That was a real treat.
Fantastic. I've got some Miles Davis.
You have Kind of Blue from Miles Davis in there? What do you got?
This one is So What?
So What? Yes.
The thing is, this is so old.
Paul, you got to put that Miles Davis in when you're hanging with the wife and make some dinner and get the family around the tree and all that stuff and have a little holiday time. That's a great one for the kids to listen to.
Well, I'm not sure they fully understand it.
Just let it soak in organically.
Yeah, yes. I've got a lot of classical music in this particular file, but I've got a lot of Jack Johnson for some reason as well. I do like Jack Johnson. Don't get me wrong, I do.
So you purchased a lot of your music. Did you then go and buy it again on like Apple and then switch over to streaming? What was your journey on the music?
so Gogo Bordello has got another bit of a. I don't know if you heard of them. Gypsy Punk. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but that's
yeah. Are you a Stereophonics fan?
Not really. No, I wouldn't say they're on my radar that much, to be honest.
Gotcha.
But I've got Cold War kids here as well. That's a throwback to the past.
That's old school right there. Paul, have you thought about doing an Understanding Conspiracy soundtrack? Maybe some of your own tunes and some other people in the world. Maybe that you got to do that. Season 1, season 2, you could live with that forever.
Well, I do actually have my own music on Understanding Creativity. I've uploaded some of it on there. And because I played piano first. Saxophone was actually the first thing I played. Then I played piano. And then I learned guitar afterwards and bass and drums and everything else after. I'm kind of like I'm not always a master of many of them, other than I suppose guitar is where I'd be more of a better than anything else now. But piano was where I started, so jazz piano.
When I opened with Eddie, when I played with Eddie Money, he plays saxophone. Obviously, do you know who Eddie Money is?
I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, he's got some good hits. You should dig in. He's a good guy from the 80s. He's passed away now, but a lot of hit songs. And he played saxophone. So warming up backstage, that was the coolest thing. He would warm up with sax, and then we'd all sing around and warm up and play guitar.
I did enjoy saxophone. Like I said, it was the first instrument I ever played. But at the same time, I felt like it felt very limited in its range. And I wanted to understand music better. And I think piano really helps you learn scales, notes, everything else, and you understand relationships between things a lot more when you see all the keys laid out in front of you.
Do you have it set up in the house for the kids to plunk around on, like a keyboard or piano or anything?
We do. It's usually here next to me, actually, but I've just moved it out of the way with the new setup. I've got my guitar behind me here, which I bought this one.
Nice. What do we got there?
Oh, it's a piece of crap pure tone guitar.
Does it stay in tune?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. It's one of the cheapest guitars I've ever owned, and it's the best.
Paul, that's all that matters. It just has to stay in tune. More expensive is usually not the best, and as long as the thing stays in tune, that's all that matters.
Exactly. I've had expensive guitars. I had a Michael Schenker UFO edition electroacoustic and everything with all the bells and whistles on it. I had a Tanglewood nylon string acoustic as well and everything. I've had expensive guitars. I sold them all and got rid of them because this cheap one I bought from like a second hand from a music shop for like 20 quid has just been wonderful. Like
that's all that matters.
Sounds fantastic. I don't know what it is about it exactly, but the fretboard's the perfect size for me. The sound is fantastic, and I've recorded pretty much everything on it ever since with a microphone.
And it's really not about collecting a bunch of stuff; it's doing stuff with it. So that's what it's all about.
Exactly. So all my music that anyone has heard was recorded with this guitar, and I do have some. I do have music.
That might be an eBay auction item at some point.
Maybe, but I used to be in a band. We called ourselves Anonymously Civil, thinking we were being really cool. It was a garage band. We were young, 17 to 19 type of thing. But those are some of the best years of my life, just making music with these other two people.
Did you play out? Did you guys do live shows at all?
Yeah, we got out there. We did a few gigs in the area, and like I said, we recorded our music, and I do have them around, and I've sampled them here and there. But then I went off on my own after that learning period.
Oh, you went solo?
Well, the thing is, I played in a high school band. Through high school called the Soul Band, and we played a lot of Commitments music. So I learned how to play piano with other people then, Then when I started to learn guitar after the fact, because I met somebody who was in that Soul Band who was like grade A jazz guitarist, fantastic. And he's one of my best friend today still, and me and him kind of became like an acoustic duo in a way. I learned everything from guitar from him, but I already knew piano, so it was easy to translate onto the guitar It didn't take much to learn the guitar because I already understood music. You know what I mean? It's that type of thing. So, but all the techniques, everything I learned from him, and I'll never be as good as him ever. But you
guys gonna get the band back together?
He lives down south now. I've got a family, 2 kids in the north, and we haven't seen each other in a while.
Paul, do it, man. Life is so short, and there's such you know from being a musician how magical it is and how much it adds to your life.
It does, and I'd say that learning time, playing in bands with people, timing, and getting to that zone with a group of people is indescribable. And I had made a lot of great music then, but it was quite worldly. I wasn't born again when I made that kind of music. And since obviously becoming a conspiracy theorist, 2012 period, in that time of my life, from like 2011 to like 2016 is when I recorded a lot of my own stuff, which I do share, and I've got some like conspiracy themed music. But it's been a long time
Yeah,
since
I've
I've
heard a
actually.
couple of the tunes when I tune in and check out your show. It's good
Yeah.
stuff, man. Yeah, I like it.
Well,
It's
thanks.
interesting. You're talking about I know that I heard a conversation about this the other day about people saying really only worship music should be the only music that's made. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I just like the storytelling. So it doesn't have to be something specifically worship or a hymn, just telling a story on the human level. I mean, that's really what it's about, and expressing it and telling a story, whether it's made up or a real life
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, so I don't think people should limit it and just have that genre. I think music is music. There's something very magical about it.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, when it comes to music, for me, I feel like a good song is a good song no matter what genre it is. And I know when I hear a song that's good in my ear and I like it. And so I have quite an eclectic music. Everyone says that, but not everyone means that. Like I
Oh
literally
man,
do.
my brother and
You
I
know?
made a I'll tell you a story about that. My brother and I made a record with a guy named Henry Hirsch, a music producer. He did all the Lenny Kravitz stuff. He's also worked with Madonna and Mick Jagger, and he's an amazing musician himself, right? But any of the big Lenny Kravitz hits, he was the guy there from the beginning. He produced all those records and engineered all those records. He's old school. He has what's called a Helios board, which is the old school analog mixing desk. And my brother and I went and made a record with him in New York. He moved out of the city in the early 2010s, maybe 2008, 2009. Bought a church in a town a couple hours out of Manhattan and turned it into a recording studio. One of the coolest experiences of our lives doing that record with him. But when we were writing for the record, because my brother's a writing partner on a lot of stuff, he doesn't want to play live or anything, but he loves just writing songs and that. So when we were writing, the process was he's in New York, we're in Arizona, and he says, okay, we would send him like completed tracks, right? Like a completed song. He goes, stop, you're doing this all wrong. All I want to hear is your voice and an acoustic guitar or a piano. If it's a guitar song, I want an acoustic guitar and a voice. Sing it up to the hook. For people that don't know, that's the chorus. Sing it up to the chorus. And if it doesn't work, it's out. We don't need to make another verse and another chorus and a guitar solo. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if it doesn't work on a voice and guitar or a voice and piano, it's not going to work. So you don't need all the other stuff is production. So like you were saying, a good song, I learned from that experience from a master that it has to work just on a voice and acoustic guitar. But like he said, we can produce it any way we want. We could make it a Taylor Swift dance song. We can make it a country song. We can make it a heavy hard rock song. We can make it a classic rock vintage kind of song. We can produce it any way we want. But at the core, it has to be a good song on a voice and a guitar or a piano. That's it. So that's the rule ever since then. That was a nugget I received in my life many years ago, and I'm grateful for him for that.
And that is actually very, very sound, solid music advice, because you hear this whenever there's like a hit or a song that people just love. You get the covers coming out in the other genres
Yeah,
later
somebody
down the
does it
line.
acoustic or unplugged or something else. It's
Yeah,
like, wow,
or
it's
a
still great.
bluegrass
I still
version or
love it.
something. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
the point is, it can be turned into any other genre quite easily because
yeah,
the core of the song, like I said, the verse, the chorus, and that hook is solid, and that never changes. But the style can always change, of course, and that is the hallmark of a good song, I would say, in terms of
yeah.
like repeatability, playability, making a hit in some way. But some of the music
Yeah,
I
because we're
enjoy
talking
as
pop
well.
music. We're not talking
Oh
avant-garde
yeah,
or jazz or anything.
yeah,
I'm a fan of pop music, whether it's something from the '60s or up until today that's out. We're not talking about eclectic,
no,
prog
no, no.
rock. Man, I'm in a totally different category than that. But yeah, a good song is a good song.
When it comes to like the opposite end of like not the perfect formula for a hit. I mean, there was this band called Neutral Milk Hotel I used to listen to when I was young. I've not heard them in a while, but they
Is that a
have this.
UK band or where are they from?
I think they're from Canada. I think they're from Canada. But you listen to one of their albums, and it's just chaos. It's nonsense, but it's poetry at its core. It's this guy singing his poems with some music in the background, with his band playing this music, and you listen to it first and you're like, what the hell was that? What did I just listen to? Then give it a second pass and actually listen to what he said, and then it changes. Then it's kind of like, oh, I get it now, and then but it's one of those things like it wouldn't pass that guy's test.
Well, and another thing on that is, for me, on my songs, I have to tell a story, and usually it's a personal story. And that's just how I work. I would have a very different, I mean, I could do it, but it doesn't, if I'm going to go put the work into actually recording it and putting it out, it's got to, it's a lot of work to do that. And to me, that's just my process. But you take a guy like Noel Gallagher with Wonderwall, the biggest song, maybe, like their tunes, they got some of the biggest tunes ever written. And like he says, it's just gibberish and just words that we put together. That's one example. But so it doesn't say that formula like I'm talking about is going to get you there. But, that's an interesting thing to think about too. A lot of times when you hear that, like, oh yeah, what's that song about? The listener may have made a whole story of what that's about and where they were in their life when they heard it. That gets imprinted on them, and when the artist comes out and says, yeah, it was a thing of gibberish and I was, gacked out of my Gorgon Coke or drugs or whatever it was, it means nothing. Oh man, don't tell me that, because it means a lot to me. A lot of people talk about that.
Well, I made this series on my channel quite a while ago. I need to revive it and get back into it again. But it was called "It's Lucifer Singing to You." It was kind of like the overarching theme.
I haven't seen that one.
It's an old one. Go check it out. Just type in "It's Lucifer Singing to You," and then there's a couple on there, And it's me kind of talking about music and how powerful it is to people, like what it means to people. And you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like if you criticize somebody's music taste, or you have just stuck your hand right into the middle of the core and squeezed their heart and twisted it. You know what I mean?
You've told them their baby is ugly or their kids are ugly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. They will hate you for criticizing their music taste. And it's kind of one of those really core primal things as well. It's kind of, they take it very personally. You're not just criticizing the music style.
Criticizing their whole life.
It's them. You are criticizing them. Yeah. They have identified with that style of music or that genre
or that song.
Oh, that song. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's because, like I said, when they hear it at that time in their life and make that association, that's forever in their hearts.
That's why music is so magical, right? Because you think immediately puts you back to where you were when you heard it or your time of life. It's amazing. I read a thing a long time ago. I can't remember the exact ages, but they say we pretty much get all the music we need in our life by the time we're maybe 18 or 17 or maybe early 20s. I think it was in the teens. And really, you don't really want to pursue any more music. You might hear stuff and I like it. And okay, I'm going to add that to the mix. Which was what makes it difficult for older people to get back into music like me in my mid 30s to go back in there and try to do that. All the people that would relate to me, they've already got all their music. So that's another mountain to climb, but it's not going to stop me. But yeah, the connection it makes, especially when, you're in your 30s now, right?
I'm 33 now, yeah.
Yeah, so throw another 10 or 20.
31 and 30. I'm between 32 and 34.
Oh, you're a young man. You're a young man. All I'm saying is another 10 or 20 years, you'll look back at the stuff and go, wow, those songs are now 40, 50 years old, and I still love them, and I can remember exactly where I was and when I heard them and what was going on in life. That's what's the coolest thing about it.
Well, even just flipping through that file I just got earlier, and seeing.
Bring it back out. Let's see some more nuggets in there. What do you got?
Again, a lot of this is actually shared CDs I had with that Adam I was telling you about, my friend who I made music with, and we made a lot of our own CDs. He shared a lot with me and vice versa. So a lot of the blues ones, I remember him giving them to me. I've got a Tower of Power album here that he gave me, which again is
I've seen Tower of Power live before. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, there's again a lot of my own classical stuff in here as well. I've got early Bob Dylan. But it's kind of, again, a lot of this isn't all my music taste, because I was at that age where we did start going to digital. So I had an iPod, iPod Nano, I think they were called, I'm not sure. And I had thousands of songs on there, which I lost that iPod. I'm heartbroken, and I've never fully recovered them all.
Well, you remember how they told you you'll forever have your music? You can always bring it back from the cloud. I remember I had thousands of songs like you did, and I had a computer that crashed, and I've never been able to get them back. Another lie they propagate on us.
Lost forever. I can't remember what this one is. What is this CD here? It doesn't actually say. but it's got a bunch of cigarettes on it on the front. I don't know what that is. I've got a lot of Jack Johnson in this one, but it's just memories. You know what I mean? Again, a lot of Jose Gonzalez albums. I got Devendra Banhart. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
A lot of odd influences from. I got Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong.
Paul, you might have to kick up some song or album reviews on your channel. Dig deep into that thing.
Maybe I got the old Foster the People album here. Torches, you know.
I mean, there's a great example, Pumped Up Kicks, right? That's a hit song. No matter how you produce it, it was right for the time. It captured a moment in time. And if I ever mix in covers and stuff, I'll play that once in a while, and everybody gravitates to it, and they love that one.
I'd say Cold War Kids is probably my most nostalgic of that time.
Why don't you get them on the show?
I probably could now, thinking about it. That's the other thing. I'd be blushing. I don't know what I'd do, because it's not like I was like a fanboying over them even at that time. But Hospital Beds, the song Hospital Beds, I don't know. That has always stuck with me.
Paul, I want to open up my YouTube and one day see an interview with those guys on your channel someday.
Yeah, but there is one song they did. I think it's called Saint John. I think that's what it was called. But they have a really obscure name to a lot of their songs. But that song told a story, like you're saying, and it was about a young boy coming home, seeing his sister walking home at night from her job, and a bunch of lads have accosted her and are basically trying to rape her or touching her up, you know. And he basically picks up a rock without thinking and smashes it into one of the guy's faces, and he dies right there, but bleeds out. And he ends up being put on death row for that. And it's just about him coping with that situation and his last thoughts. And that's a hell of a story. I mean,
especially to encapsulate it in a verse and a hook and a verse and a hook and a coda or a bridge. And it's all, you only have so many sentences, and you got to deliver it exactly as you need it to do. And it needs to work. Otherwise it's a big pile of mess.
But even like the way they deliver the story is not like your typical formulaic song. There's a lot of time changes as well as they build up to, and it always stuck with me as like a bizarre way of making music. But I've always carried that as an inspiration throughout my own music ever since. You know what I mean?
Maybe you do a cover of that song, an acoustic cover.
We maybe I do. It's
Did you guys play it live when you played out?
We did Hospital Beds live.
Okay.
We had our own version of that, and we made it our own, naturally. But you just can't be. That's another one of those songs. Like I said, Florence and the Machine covered Hospital Beds, I think. You know what I mean? It's one of those that can carry out and be done in any style type of songs. And we did our own style when I was in the band. I do my own style now with the acoustic guitar, and it's those guys were masters in their own way. But like, no one would ever listen to their album and think they were one of the greatest musicians to ever exist. You know what I mean?
But it connected with you, and that's all that matters. And you've got a couple of their songs that will forever are a part of your life.
And it also carries with it an emotion, a feeling, which I'm feeling right now, of what it was like when I was first listening to them. And I can never describe that feeling. It's like people like synesthesia, they have like a smell for a number, or like they have this odd association with things that is only unique to them. There's something about thinking about that time I listened to that music that gives me this odd emotion in my chest, which is indescribable. Like, it's one of those things, and that's why I understand music is powerful. That what it also taught me is that music is extremely powerful to the point where it actually could be used as a weapon, and I think it does get used as a weapon.
I think it is a lot. Yeah,
because they can control people through music. It's purely magic. It's magic in its actually purest form. It's using sound and frequency to manipulate people's emotions and get them to believe and think and do things.
And it's crazy how it works, right? It's very effective.
Very effective. So getting back to the point, I was talking about this whole Lucifer is singing to you thing. I realized, pop music, chart music, the music that they put in front of you and tell you,
this is the good stuff.
This is what everyone's listening to. This is what you should like because everyone else likes it. And like, that's bullshit. None of that is organic whatsoever. Nothing gets in that chart system like organically, and if it does, it's a breakaway once in a lifetime moment because they had to put it there because and
it doesn't mean you might hear it and go, oh, I kind of like that. That's a good hook, or that's a good story, or that's catchy. Yeah,
exactly. But these things are manufactured propaganda delivering things, and I found there's a pattern to a lot of that music. and you'll find, well, you can apply this framework to most of the songs that are in the charts. Imagine Lucifer is singing to you. What would they say? And it's always fits, especially with a lot of the female artists. I
Oh, I like
find
that. Yeah.
like they really do, and it can works for the male artists too. You can apply the same method, and you'll find it fits 80% of the time, and it's usually as though Lucifer is singing to you in the sense of it's like, I love you, I only want what's best for you. Like you should just do everything for yourself, only think about you and go out and get yours. I'm here for you till the very end. Forget about that evil, cruel, vindictive God who keeps you down. It's that kind of
Right.
that's the general message, but it sounds like a love song. That's what they do. They make it sound like it's somebody singing about somebody they love. It's
So
not.
let me ask you this: do you think
Yeah.
do you think that's just happening by accident, or you think that's intentional?
I think it's intentional. I think at the very top, the Luciferians around the industry are making music, masking behind the veneer of, oh, it's just a love song about the artist singing about someone they love. But it's not. It's a carefully crafted message from the devil himself to
Well,
give
I
you
mean, look
sympathy
at what's
for him.
happening. I was just checking. I check in on the news once in a while to see what they're trying to sell us, right? And I'm not a huge devourer of mainstream media or anything, but I came across the Zach Brown thing. Are you familiar with that? We have the Sphere here in Vegas, where like U2 and a bunch of big bands have done. It's that big globe you're completely surrounded by the experience. Are you
Mm.
familiar with the Zach Brown thing? He's dressed up with like a crown and like satanic imagery and everything.
I think I saw pictures of this. Is it was like literally a cage made of human bodies that comes up around everybody's? Is it that one? Is
Yeah,
that what you're talking
and
about?
my personal opinion on that, I think it's a publicity thing. Meaning, he's come out and said that it's a snapshot of what he went through as a child, and he's trying to bring it to life. But all the internet is a buzz, and you get a lot of clicks by saying it's satanic. Satanic imagery has entered country music, and they've gone satanic. Even the good old boy sitting on a pickup truck and drinking beers with your cowboy hat has turned into that. I think it's doing exactly what they want it to do: get everybody talking and sell tickets and records and push that agenda because it's so blatant and in your face, right? And we see, I mean, what Beyonce? I was reading Polestar, which is the industry magazine, talking about how Beyonce's got the largest selling country music tour in the world now with receipts or something like that. And so it's a machine. People really need to understand, like we've talked about, nothing happens organically. It doesn't get to the charts, it doesn't become popular, and it's all manufactured. It doesn't mean there's not stuff that you like in there at all.
Well, that's the problem. Like, it is catchy. It's magical. It can get you. You can
Yeah.
reasonably put under the spell if you're not careful about it, because music does that to you.
Well, a
Like
lot
it
of the
gets you.
repeating beats and the repeating lines and all those things, it's tribal and goes back to our maybe most primitive ingrained DNA and instincts of things, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there is something said about frequency and sound also messing with your thoughts and feelings like in a big way. And I think they've mastered it. I think they have mastered that art in the industries, and these experts know exactly what to do to get people to listen and to pay attention. And I find you get these, like another example, like Hosier, for example,
Mhm.
quite popular a few years ago. It's getting kind of a bit old hack now. You know what I mean? He's yesterday's news. Someone else is just going to replace him, and I think that has just happened. I think I can't remember what he's called, but the hook is like, I'll see you in paradise, the sacrifice. And you
Right.
listen to it, and on the surface, paradise, sacrifice, blah blah. It sounds like a love song or something to do with Jesus or God, right? But when you really listen to it, it's nothing to do with that. It's about a man's obsession with some woman. You know what I mean? And but that's how they seem to do it. They have these key words that pop up throughout the song, and everyone assumes it must be a religious song about God or something. And Hosey was the old one who did that. Okay, and he had that song, take me to church, I'll worship on the floor. But you listen to the whole thing, and on the surface, it sounds like he's talking about going to church and praying to God. But if you really just listen to the whole song, he hates God. He worships the goddess, and it's like it's all about sex. He's literally the complete opposite. He's obviously just some Satanist who's out there using these keywords at the right plosive moments throughout the beat of the song with the 1/4 timing. So
Yep.
you only soak in a surface level while listening on the radio, but if you really get to the core of the message of the song itself, it's purely satanic. like, and in a very literal sense, worship the goddess, not God, and kind of like make sacrifices to devils. And he's literally saying all these things and have sex as a ritual to get more spiritually enlightened. And that's literally all he sings about. He's obsessed with it.
That's all around us all the time, though, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. But it's just, I've seen how pernicious it is. Do you get what I mean? Like, on the surface, the song sounds reverent, like a hymn to God, and he is talented and can pull it off, But you just actually really focus on the message and listen to the words, it's the opposite. And that's how it gets in. That's how they get it in, And you do internalize that type of thing, even if you don't realize it, and it does impact the way you walk through life after the fact.
Yeah, everybody listening should go read a book by Edward Bernays called Propaganda. It doesn't specifically go into music, but you see how we have been sold a bill of goods. And, he was Freud's nephew, and he did things with the fashion industry and the automobile industry. He's the guy that invented the all-American breakfast and 3 meals a day and all that stuff. And it's in his own words. It's about this thick. It's maybe, 100 pages. You can read it in about a half hour, 45 minutes, but you'll see the blueprint for what they've been doing to us, basically what you and I have been born into, a system in everything, how it's sold to us. It shows you that everything is a lie in a lot of ways.
I find the message isn't just about selling you products like you would think it would be, or, necessarily just political stuff either. It's literally religious. The message is religious. It's about, where do you put your worship? Where will you put your attention? Where will you put your time, and your value and your morality? That's what these songs are really interested in. That's what they try to manipulate people with. And it's far more sinister than just subliminal messages to sell product. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of, I call them the glitterbug churches, like the Joel Osteen, or the big mega church guys. That whole music and those scenes, that stuff is creeping me out, a lot of that stuff. And I don't think people really understand what's happening there. But there's a classic example of where they're not really sending maybe the right message. That's just my opinion on it. But I'm not a fan of those organizations at all. And the worship music, Hillsong and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's an Australian Hillsong, isn't it? I think it is. I'm not sure, but either way, the mega church, the whole music in church thing, I because of everything I've just discussed, it's like, no, I think there's a big problem there. I think
they've got pyrotechnics and bubble machines and inflatables flying over and fire and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing inherently evil or wrong with music. As a musician, we understand this,
Yep.
But it's the capacity for it to be used for evil that we always have to be conscious of. And I feel like if you're not aware of how it can be used as a weapon, then you are the victim the weapon's going to be used on. So you have
and it doesn't mean that every song has to be rainbows and butterflies. You can tackle serious issues. You were talking about my stuff. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, singer-songwriter, or be the activist guy. I have a couple songs that touch on things that I think are important to talk about, but I don't want my whole catalog to be that, But yeah, it is. It's your 100%. It's very powerful.
Well, look, I've always described that Christian style of music that you see in these churches. It's not my style. I find it kind of tacky. I find it kind of cheesy and lame.
Cringe is the word the kids use, right?
Cringy. Yeah, that's the word. Cringy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I listen to it. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I don't think Jesus would have liked this. How I feel about it. Even he'd be like, bro, what are you doing? This is a gross. This is not quite right. And it is, it makes, I don't know, I just don't think that's how God was supposed to be venerated in a way. It cheapens the whole idea, I think it's beneath him in a sense.
It didn't surprise. I was just going to say, it didn't surprise me because I knew it would happen, but it was disappointing when all the churches in the pandemic time were supporting vaccines en masse or weren't speaking out against it like they should have been. That was a real tell of what's going on out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of these churches are bought and paid for. And if you get the little season thing into the whole mix again, it's kind of, oh yeah, all of that is completely...
Keep that away.
That's completely controlling the churches from the start, because it is about making sure they don't be effective in making Christians realize their own power and authority. And like I said, I feel like that kind of music weakens their authority because you're capitulating to the world again. You're trying to be like the world, and we're supposed to be set apart, and that sadly means not putting on like I don't know, pop rock in the middle of a church, you know. And that
Right.
I think there's place for music in a church and singing in reverence to God. But I think it's simpler. Like you said, if it can't just be a person with a guitar, then it's wrong. It shouldn't be
Right.
there. You know, I think there is room for it. You know, and obviously it's just classic hymns as well, which the Anglican Church knows all about. You know, I think you can't go wrong with basically just reading Psalms and singing it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. But a lot of this modern church music, I find, is could it perhaps also be Lucifer singing to you when you really listen to it? You know, apply that framework and see if it fits, and I think you'd be surprised.
Well,
What
what do you,
God
you know
are they
what I was going
talking
to ask
about? You
you,
know, go ahead.
in your research on the little season, when we talk about churches and cathedrals and all the ancient buildings that have these massive organs built around them, or they're built around a massive organ. I've played a lot of historic theaters and opera houses that have those. And what I have found, a lot of people don't know how to play them, or there's only one guy in town that knows how to operate the thing. Nobody knows how to work on it or fix it. Now that just might be a thing that, in 50 or 60 years or 100 years, the trade has gone away. Is it more conspiratorial where those were already existing? Perhaps. But what do you think the ancient churches and buildings were used for? Do you think they really were places of worship, or were they like healing centers that a lot of people talk about? What's your feeling on that?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think in that time, every building was a veneration to God. Everything was built to His glory. I think anywhere you were, as long as you
Because you have
were comforted.
incredible ones in the UK, more so than we have here in America, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yes. The cathedrals here are out of this world. I've seen a few myself. And I studied next to Lincoln Cathedral, and it's you can't describe it. Like
They
you walk
require
around.
no PA system. They don't need any sound reinforcement. The building and the structure is the PA system and the sound reinforcement,
Yeah,
right?
the organ's right slap in the center, and where the cross is as well. Like, and it's just before it, so it resonates out around every like chamber in this huge structure. The ceilings are so high, so it's incomprehensible. Like, and the attention to detail everything's made of like completely like this thick solid marble. It's kind of like, how was this thing even made with this granite or limestone like pillars everywhere, and it's these high arches, these rose windows. It's basically sound manifested into the physical.
And you
No other way
feel
to
it.
describe it.
You
Oh
feel it.
yeah,
It's a physical experience.
there's a resonance to the whole place, and I've been blessed actually that I did manage to go through Manchester Cathedral. It's a lot smaller than most of these other cathedrals, but it was still an impressive building. And there was actually someone playing the organ, right? And I just sat down and I listened to them play the organ because how often do you get to hear a church organ being played? It's really rare, you know. So I sat down and I listened. And I got about 15 minutes before they got up, closed the book, and just left, and came out of this little thing. They had a key for it and everything. And it's kind of like that was just their job for the day to come in and play the organ for like an hour. You know what I mean? That's probably that one person you're talking about in the area who can do it. And then he was just silent in there. Then I was thinking like, wow, it's a shame. You know, it's a
You
real
just had
shame. But
something magical happen. Yeah.
yeah, but they were just playing about. They weren't really playing anything specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was music, of course, and everything. It had structure and theme to it, but they kept switching up and playing different things every now and then. Like they were just having fun, you know, this experiment with this thing. And I couldn't imagine what it was like when it was being played all day by somebody who really knew what they were doing and was playing real songs of that time, you know. Because an organ is not just a piano; it's the
No,
feet as well. It's everything, and these
it's
are all
like flying a
completely different.
helicopter. Yeah.
It's a completely like I couldn't do it. As a piano player, I couldn't play the organ. Like there's valves and buttons to pull as well, and while doing the feet and pressing the buttons, and there's like mechanisms to make them ring out longer and shorten them. The pedals involved are just ridiculous. Like, and it's a whole like you use your entire body to play the organ. It's not just like your fingers, you know. And watching it just for 15 minutes, I was like, that is ridiculous. How long did it take them to learn? Again, who's even going to take the time to learn that type of stuff? What life do you have to live to end up being knowing these type of things? But I think these buildings, you know, you see the structure, you hear the music, and I think they were both a place of worship and glory to God, but also practical. I think that sound meant something, or it did something for people. I think it definitely brought people up and
That's what
healed
I
them.
feel too.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel like you can't help but being there and then leave feeling better. You can't help it. It's something about the whole place. But there's also these days something solemn about walking around them as well. I know that it's hard to describe. It feels like the place is dead. That's the only way to describe it. Like it's beautiful, but it's dead. That's the only way
Well,
I can't explain it. It's
we
something
have
about
that
there's a
just from my
sadness.
experience we have opera houses and historic theaters all across America, and they're not a vibrant music venue. There might be some big ones that Live Nation owns where they bring concerts in and touring acts all the time, but the majority of small towns have beautiful opera houses, theaters, and all they do is have rent them out for weddings or corporate events, and they're really not used for live music anymore and bands coming through because that whole industry has collapsed, right? That's another topic, but those buildings, like you say, they're just dormant, and it's a shame that I can't even describe because they're so beautiful, and not even at the level of what you're talking about in the UK. But yes, they are like dead. Yeah, which
But the
is an
people in
analogy
there,
for the small towns and the small
yeah, I mean,
businesses around them.
there
Yeah,
are there's people walking through them. There's tours being done and stuff, and people getting the history on how it was built and so forth. And there's people walking around, looking around it, all like, look at this place. Whoa, look at that thing over there. From all over the world. Who've come to see this cathedral because it is like a masterful work of art. But I can't help but I feel like I'm walking around a beautifully preserved corpse.
yes,
That's what it feels like I'm walking around. And
like a
there is
museum.
this there's like a solemnness to everybody. You're walking around in silence. It's rude to speak too loud, and you got to be serious about what you're doing and looking around. It's kind of like you have respect for the dead at a funeral. It's that type of
Yeah,
feeling. And I don't know why it's there, but it's there because something's missing. It's the only way to describe it. Something is definitely missing, but it looks beautiful, but there's a sadness in the air hanging over all of it. And I think it's because these were supposed to be places that vibrated. I think with the ether mixing with the spires running down through the pillars, the whole thing should be glowing,
yeah.
like with power and energy and light, and like everything should be charged. And it's not, it's a dead, it's like a light bulb that's been turned off.
Perhaps a generator that's been turned off, or like you say, a light bulb that's been turned off. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah, and its true glory requires the power to flow through it, and there's nothing flowing through it. Like
Well, I
it's
mean, think
it's
about from a control perspective of the them that are controlling us. If free energy was given to everybody, I mean, what's your biggest expense? I mean, you guys are in the UK, you got heating bills, I'm sure that could probably choke a horse. Air conditioning in the desert in America can run $1,000, $1,500 a month for a house to keep it cool. Imagine,
mm,
and then all the food production that requires energy and everything else we use energy for. I think I read something, the number was like 70% of the people on Earth go to bed without the ability to cook food or have energy, have running water or electricity. The majority of people here. So think about a game changer that would be of not to be able to control people if they all had access to free energy in some
mhm.
capacity. That has to be a component of this.
I believe so. I mean, there's loads of videos out there. If people haven't listening, haven't looked into them, you can find them. It even happened recently. I think I saw one leak somewhere, and it shows that these spires do occasionally still pick up some energy, and
Yes.
light starts emitting from them. And they start glowing and sparking in really weird looking ways. And it's kind of that's what they actually should be doing all the time. And that's what they used to do. But it's like they've been unplugged or something's like a key component's missing that no longer allows them to function as they should have functioned. People say it was mercury originally, balls, these mercury balls that were encased within the spire or something has been taken out. The thing that conducts it, the thing that utilizes the energy and stores it like in some capacity, and then something's gone, like, and they no longer actually do work as like free energy devices.
Well, the
Basically,
concept of the ether, what didn't Einstein, wasn't he the guy that supposedly came out and said there is no ether? That's a theory and there's no truth to that. So they just dispel it right
Te-
off the bat and bury that
Tesla
in the
laughs
backyard.
at that
Yeah.
concept, And there's
Yeah.
Tesla literally sat there, like surrounded with ether energy bursting all around him. It's kind of like, what did you say, Einstein? like, Yeah, they've completely just buried and hijacked the truth behind how energy works in the world. Because the energy we have can be charged. You have to pay for it. It's finite, and it needs to be generated through their means. And you have to pay for it. But if it was just free because you figured out the secrets of how to harness it from the air,
It'd be a game changer. Be a game
well,
changer.
yeah, a lot of people would lose a lot of money very quickly. Yeah,
When
and
you were working at the grocery, I always thought about this when I was listening to some of your shows when you told the story about Aldi and that. Did you ever want to get a YouTube channel or just fire it up a little bit to talk about the food supply and all the poisons that were on the shelves all around you at the Aldi?
I tried to be honest, I tried to just forget my whole life as a conspiracy theorist and I worked as a manager. I tried to suppress it all. You
That's a
can't,
tough
sadly.
task to do. It's tough to
It
do
is,
that.
yeah. I try not to think too much about what I was actually doing on a daily basis. I just focus more on helping people rather than focusing on what I'm actually selling to them. Like it comes a point where those people push you to the limits as well. And it got to me eventually, and I realized I can't do that forever.
Well,
But
here's
yeah,
here's one that blows my mind. I saw I don't know if people have seen this. Have you seen the one where the guy takes Oreo cookies and lines them up like on a 2x4, maybe 5 in a row, and takes a blowtorch and he hits it for a second, then hits the next one for 10, 20 seconds, and then he hits the last one for like 90 seconds or 60 seconds. It does nothing, doesn't even affect the logo of Oreo on the cookie with a constant flame on it. Yet the 2x4 bursts into flames all around it, right? And I was
yeah.
thinking, if people are timely on the news right now today, at any moment, Venezuela could break out. We could go to war with Venezuela because of the fentanyl and the drugs. They got to stop the drugs, right? Yet on every grocery store shelf and convenience store in America, they're selling these poison Oreo cookies. What about that drug? What about that poison and every other thing that's in the grocery store? People lose sight of that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the whole food. I actually had a video recently, like, is everything poison? And I had a good
Yes, it
friend
is,
called Tom.
Paul. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it is.
exactly. Well, that was the conclusion.
Just like
But
everything is a lie.
just to cut it short, yes, it turns out, and our water supply too seems to have something really dodgy going on with it right now. Live bacteria in there that looks alien as well. That doesn't make any sense. Like that.
Have you pulled some out and put it under a microscope, or what's
Oh,
going
yeah,
on?
yeah.
Like in your neighborhood, or?
The guy who did it for his Swiss water, he's in Switzerland, so he did it for the water there. And he saw what looks, I can only describe as like a Geiger type beast, like within it, like this monstrous alien looking thing in there, like fibrous looking monster inside the water. And the thumbnail is that thing. And you look at it and you're like, what the hell? It looks like an alien from Alien, you know what I mean? It actually looks like one of them. In our water, and he's like, yes, you need to filter it correctly. And he says reverse osmosis is the way to go if you want to get your water actually clean and healthy. And he says his life has turned around in terms of health.
I hope he's got an affiliate link where he's selling some water pitchers or something along with
No,
that.
he doesn't. He doesn't know. He's just genuinely saying that it works for him and his life has been healthy and for the better ever since switching to this way of filtering water. He says bottled water, microplastics, don't do it. There isn't, and the tap water is the most heavily polluted stuff you can imagine when it comes to like chemicals.
Well, I go down the rabbit hole because of my whole life I've been looking at these things. But we talk about, we try to eat clean, we try to eat better food. Obviously, you don't want to go get fast food every day. You physically feel better, and you try to do all the right choices with food and water and things. But then everything that food is grown in has been chemtrailed for the last 50 years. So the ground is a poison. All the Roundup, all the all the pesticides. I mean, you can't win in a lot of respects from the start to the end. Everything has been poisoned, right?
Well, that's kind of his conclusion. He thinks whatever's in this water becomes because of that. It's a chain reaction, and it's just got to this level now. And he says he seems like the only way to really filter these type of things out, because they're so tiny, is it has to be through reverse osmosis filtering.
But wouldn't the reverse osmosis machine, like the containers and stuff, that's made of plastic, then there's microplastics getting back into the water and all the poisons along with it?
I think there's different systems you can get, more expensive than the others.
You know what I'm saying, though? It's like a never-ending thing where you can't get to the root of it.
Unfortunately, yeah, and I think obviously you have to remineralize the water afterwards as well with like sea salt or something. Like you have to do it yourself. You know what I mean? Because it takes everything out of the water, including all the good stuff, like the actual minerals that you do need. So it's a process, And then of course the issue is you've got to wash yourself with the same water because it gets to your skin when you have a bath.
The skin is the biggest organ of the body. It sucks everything in.
we're kind of at a loss, really. Like, there's not much we can do. I think God has made us far more resilient than we think we are to this type of stuff as well. And I do feel like every time they add a new poison to the regimen, God gives us an update as well. Like, he gives us like a software or hardware update, and something happens inside of us that
To
stops it
better
from working.
combat the
Yeah, I
poisons.
feel like that keeps happening. Like, and that's why we're not all just dying all the time when we should be, based on the amount of poisons they're giving to us. I think it's a miracle. And I think God is on our side when it comes to this. And no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You know, I think there's really something to that,
Yes.
especially when it comes to the poison. I think our paranoia of what we're eating might be the biggest problem. I think it might actually be real power in just praying over your food before you eat it. I really do. I think that can really
Well, think of the
nullify.
power of just giving thanks, even if
Yeah,
internally, to your inner dialogue for the meal or the blessings, right? And I have to remind
absolutely.
myself that every day, but we are so fortunate.
Yeah, no, I think I try to stay positive about most of these things, because you can, at the end of the day, get into a horrible doom spiral when you really, really contemplate the efforts and the lengths the enemy is going to kill us.
And
But then at
especially
the
when you
same,
have young kids and you see the light in their eye and
Mhm.
the hope that you want to instill in them, or give them some sort of opportunity for, right? You have to keep on going.
Well, like I said, I think prayer, fasting is a good, powerful tool as well
Yeah.
when implemented correctly. And being vigilant, of course, and trying to eat healthy and stay healthy and be active, but at the same time, not having the fear, because I think we're spiritually, supernaturally being protected. I really think we are in many ways, all of humanity. I think we should be dead by now based on what they've done, right? But we're
You
not.
know, Paul, on that, I've thought about this. What do you think about this? People often say, if they wanted us all dead, they could just push a button and kill everybody, however they did that, right? But don't you think there's like they want us to suffer? There's got to be like a suffering element that gives them power or something to see us in misery and suffering and on that vibe versus just get rid of them. They could exterminate us in a second.
Well, I think the demons and the fallen angels feel that way about us. Like, they want to watch us suffer. Kind of like, I don't know, have you ever read the book I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
Yes.
Have you heard of this? And it's called, I think it's called I Am, the robot who basically destroys all humanity and keeps a few
Right.
alive just to torment for eternity. He gives this great speech of why he hates humanity. And it's because you can actually experience the world. I can't. That's basically what it comes down to. You
Which is
have
a
a
lot of
body.
your research on the Nephilim clowns, that they
Yeah.
don't have a physical body to manifest, so they have to possess people. I mean, that's perfect.
Yeah. And he's like, look, you have this gift of sense. You can smell, taste, and feel the breeze and all this type of stuff. But you blew it. Your race was destructive and awful and terrible and greedy and awful, and it's this type of thing. And I had to watch like years you just do this to yourselves and not appreciate what you actually had. And he generated into a jealousy and a hatred as well at the same time. It's kind of like, you don't deserve to have these type of things. And that's why in the end he did what he did. He killed all of humanity. Completely terrible. He hit the singularity and basically got to a point where he can manipulate matter, and he now is God of that world. Like, he can make anything exist instantly. Not in like in the holographic sense, in a literal sense. Like, he can nanopartically change the morphology of things around him to be whatever he wants it to be. He can make sure your body never dies. Like, basically, he can turn you into anything he wants, like that. Like, he's like a robot that can do that, an AI basically that can do that. And that's what he's done. He's picked like 5 people, and he just keeps them alive forever, torturing them with the worst psychological nightmares for fun. So that's all it does. Like, and that's like, not only is that a stark warning for what AI could do.
Sometimes I feel like maybe we're in that system right now, all of us, with some of the things that we're experiencing.
Well, this is what I think, there is that level to what's going on with us. I think there is a parallel here. Like, I think the spiritual wickedness in high places, the principalities, the powers that we don't understand, they feel that way towards us. It's like you created
Like a
by God.
hatred, a hatred.
A hatred, which is why it goes beyond just killing us. They don't want to kill us. They want to make us suffer because they know they've lost. This is the irony of it all. They know where they're going. They know what their fate is. Like, they
Do you
know what
think?
God has in store in the end. And they
Do
know
you
they
think?
can't kill us, So what can make us suffer, though? They can definitely do that in the meantime. They'll try the damnedest to do it. And I think that's what it really comes down to. Yeah.
Do you
sadly.
think majority of people that you come across, whether or not they're into conspiracies or not, or want to look deeper as to why they're here, where they're going when they leave here, and all those things, do you think they really understand that this is a battle between good and evil playing out right now here in front of us, or do you think that doesn't even enter their time zone?
Just normal people.
Yeah. Or are you finding more people are thinking that? You know, like the start of this, we said more people are waking up to this or to that. Do you think a lot of people, even if they don't know what it means, they're thinking, this is really good and evil, biblical level stuff going on here? Because I say
I
it all
think
the
we're getting
time.
there. I
Yeah.
think we're getting there now. I think most people are realizing that. I really do. I think a lot of even older generations may be slow to catch up, and because they come from a time where things were probably good to some level, and they still believe that system is what we live in today. I think more younger generations are completely 100% clued into what's really happening. You can't, they know everything, but they're too young to do anything about it right now. I think a lot of middle ground people like me, yourself, people in the 30s and 40s and 50s, I feel like we are waking up rapidly now. I think we're
There's a
reaching that.
quickening happening.
I
Definitely.
think I think we're at that point where it's kind of like, yeah, the young have it right, and we realize the reality we actually live in. I think I did it quite early. When I was like 22, 23, getting into this stuff, I was an outsider. There really was an older generation who knew more about this, and now it's swung the other way. Now I've turned 33. It's the young people know this, and the old don't. It's the opposite. I'm in that weird middle ground,
Right.
kind of riding that wave. And I think more people of the millennial generation and Gen X are definitely. Problem is with our generation, we didn't want to say it because we still wanted to believe that there was a world that we could
There was
inherit that
hope.
was good. Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so it's taken us a little bit longer than the younger generations to clue in. Maybe I was an outsider because I was quite young when I realized and wanted to say it, but I feel like now it's getting to the point where it's like, come on, you have to see it now, right? In fact, you would have to be delusional not to see it now. You would have to just you even know you're lying to yourself by this point. It's not even like a subconscious thing anymore. It's kind
Sometimes when
of
I go out in the world and just deal with people on a regular basis of just normal stuff, I go, oh my gosh, nobody's awake. This is getting worse. People are more clueless than they were before. But I like that
I
you
think
have
that's
hope. I'm going to try to have more of that hope.
no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I do. But I feel like even those people right now are just in a level of denial, I would say. I think that's what's really going on. They'll never consciously seem like they're expressing it. They might not even fully understand it themselves in their own core, but they had that. Just, I think even those people have something in them now where it's kind of like,
Something's
something,
wrong.
something's wrong. This is not what I thought it was. I feel like that's happening now. I think we're at the start of it. But I feel like I said, the whole truth movement thing is not just some underground fringe in the corner of the internet thing anymore. It's becoming
It's
mainstream.
almost more fringe and more, bad term, tinfoil hat, but it's more fringe to not be clued into these things. Like
Exactly.
you
That's
don't
what I'm
really
saying.
know that whole moon thing was a scam. You can't see that by looking at that footage, whether we have all the answers to it or not. I went deep on that topic, obviously, but it's like you really are looking at archival footage and looking at technology and thinking that was real. Yeah, because I saw it on television. Oh, all right, sit down. We got to talk. We got to talk.
Yeah, but I think that's what I mean. It's laughable now. It really is. Like we can actually legitimately laugh at people who believe that narrative. Like we've got the upper hand on them now. It's like, are you serious? Catch up. That's the kind of attitude we've got. And I think it's working to wake more people up. And I think people are realizing like, wow, that is ridiculous. Like, and I think because the world is also giving people less to hold on to as well. As people are losing more freedom and the crashes is
Destroying the
happening,
economy.
all that
Their
stuff. I think,
yeah,
yeah, I think
everything.
look,
Businesses.
what have people got left to defend? Why defend the line anymore when it's literally giving them nothing? It's taking everything away from them. I think people are realizing like they have nothing to lose, so you may as well start actually believing and understanding what's really going on. I think, and that's why I think in some way the enemy may have overplayed their hand a little bit, and I think they're worried now. I think they're panicking. And
Do
because they are
you
people
really
at the end of the
think?
day.
Do you really think that? I'll give me an answer to this. So I know when I did the vaccine mask lockdown protest song, right? I go, okay, this is something I want to say. I'm going to put it in music, and I'm going to publicly plant the flag and put it everywhere so everybody sees it. I'm not going to hide it. Not going to like just quietly go away. I'm going to publicly make my position known. Okay. So I did that and it got really no traction, right? Okay, I'm glad I did it. Looking back, I'm glad I did that at that time. And then just recently, I released a tune that talks about kind of the left right paradigm and how all the wars are engineered. And even though there's real life death and destruction that happens organically after they're started, we know we can get into the false flags of all the big wars we know about that potentially were completely engineered to get started, get kicked off, bring people in. So I touch on that. And again, I send it out to alt media, and very few people want to talk about it because I'm not saying the right or the left has the solution. I'm telling you they're both full of BS and go above it because there's a power controlling both of those sides of that political theater in a sandbox. So you don't see what's really controlling you above. And, you know, in America, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but especially with the right and especially with like rock and roll and country music, you got to support the troops undyingly and not question anything they're sent to do. And you got to back the blue, meaning the police, right? So it's got to be 100%. And if you don't, you're anti-American and you're a traitor. And that song speaks to really both of those things. And I used to do fundraising concerts a lot for veterans and for like back the blue stuff in my fundraising thing. And I kind of had to stop doing it because I would ask people, well, what would you send your kids off to war and tell them to go join the military? And if you knew that these wars were manufactured and engineered, like with the Iraqi war, when he got up and said they have yellow cake, weapons of mass destruction, and that whole thing got kicked off from that and from 9/11. And we've learned, I mean, you can read books people have written. Smedley Butler, over 100 years ago, wrote War is a Racket, talking about his experience with how all the wars are manufactured. He's basically just the henchman for the corporations, and he gets into very specific things at his time. But so I had a fundraiser before we were supposed to do this interview a couple months ago, and I did an interview about that song, basically saying, people really should question the supporting the troops and the military blindly and everything they do. And if you question it, you're anti-American. I don't think that. Just hoping it would inspire conversation for people to look at these things. And I had a fundraiser that uses equine therapy for veterans with PTSD. For people that don't know, equine therapy helps kids with autism and PTSD and, you know, trauma survivors. They work with horses and it's very therapeutic. So I've done a lot of those fundraisers because it ties in with the suicide prevention vibe. And they canceled me because basically, oh, you're anti-American. We're a veterans organization. You got to support the military and the troops regardless, blindly, whatever they do, they are always in the right. And so there was just another example. What I was going to say was, do you, doing your work and all the content that you make, do you ever go, I just want to stop this. I want to give this up. It's not doing what I need it to do, or it's not being successful. Do you ever get moments where you just like I don't want to do this anymore because it's not working?
No. That's the short answer of it. No, I've never once felt like what I do, or I never really think about it like that. Like, is it
what if they turned
not?
your YouTube channel off and they banned it and you didn't have that platform anymore?
Oh,
have you thought about that?
I'd find somewhere. Yeah, I'd find somewhere to say these things. I just
That's good. I'm glad to hear you say that. Yeah.
I just publish more books instead. I become a writer and just publish.
What if they ban your books? The book burning, or they shut you off all the platforms?
Well, then there's a thing I can do, I guess. I guess I'll have to just get a job and shut up.
No, we got to keep going.
You know? Well, I probably will. It's in my nature. I don't know what I do. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Yeah.
What else can I do in that scenario? I mean, ideally, me and my wife, we're talking about it and everything, but I feel like we'll probably end up leaving this country eventually, just because of how stringent and cracking down on free speech they actually are.
It's just crazy over here as it is there, just in a different way.
In a different way, I suppose, yeah. But I feel like you guys might hold out a little bit longer than us, maybe. But even then, I understand the problems enough to know.
Well, think about with my deal. I wasn't using the radio show. That was just a thing that I did at my own expense to just try to get the word out, right? But music, performing live, is my livelihood. So I have to physically come into a venue that books me and sell tickets and play to get paid, right? And my whole existence is on that. When I publicly made the position on the vaccines and the masks, it turned off. And I was like, man, there's a real consequence, right?
Yeah. I think right now I'm in the middle of an odd time in history where actually I can get away with saying this for a lot longer than perhaps we should be. I do think God wins in the end. And I think as long as you focus on Jesus and on God, you will be divinely protected to go on for as long as He'll allow you to go on as well. I've found. I think you do have to be clever. I think there's a time and a place to say certain things. And I think there are a lot of people out there who have often tried to bait me into discussing certain things at certain times. And I don't. It's like, no, I'll discuss it in my own time when I think the time's right, because I know how this world works, you know. So I've always been playing that kind of game. But at the same time, I think, you know, the Nephilim Look Like Clowns book, for example, is so detached from anything at all, like political or the type of things they're looking to shut down, that could always be a good safety net for me anyway.
Yet if they only knew and looked into it, it explains so many more things that are happening in our world, right?
True, but it has a very odd veneer which keeps it protected because it sounds crazy on the surface and like not interesting and something nobody should even look at, you know. So
I'll give you.
It's clever enough. I think God did that for me in some way. You know, I think that's my safety net. That book in some way is kind of something that helps me be able to do this confidently, knowing if the YouTube went down, it wouldn't be the end of me. Like, yeah, I could keep going for as long as I
always
can,
remember that, and maybe use my story as an example of just even though if that happens, keep going, right?
Well, I just find another platform. And there's plenty of platforms on the internet this day and age that doesn't, you know, and I think that's the point of this singularity I was talking about in the truther movement. I think even the truthers know we need to diversify our platforms. We need to put our eggs in many baskets because of just the nature of the world we live in. And maybe I'll just go to I don't know what's it called, that other one people use. I can go find it. Rumble's okay. The interface is a bit horrible to use. I'm not gonna lie.
That thing's a train wreck over there.
It's hard to use Rumble. I've got
Odyssey is another one that's pretty tough too, though.
I'm on Odyssey as well. I'm already on these backup places, but I don't upload there. There is like a fail safe, but they're not really useful in any way because no one's on them. You can't. What's the point in going onto a platform where nobody is? No one's listening, you know. But maybe I think I would recede into writing. That's probably what I would end up doing, or wait till the heat dies off and come back and just start the channel.
I just hear when you cover topics, or the other guys that I've listened to cover topics, like, man, I got taken down as soon as that episode went up. How are they talking about this now? You know, it's wild how it's changed.
Sheer dumb luck, I think, and I think a lot of it as well. Again, is tact and timing. It's all about presentation as well. I find if you present it in a way that isn't combative, that tends to avoid people flagging you, because it's people dobbing you in that get you done. It's people like reporting you to the masses. He said something I didn't like, go and shut him up. You know, that tends to be what it is. But if you can like say it in a way that like offends the least amount of people somehow, you can tend to fly under the radar for a while. But as my channel gets bigger,
sometimes sometimes offending people is really effective, though. It gets right down to business. You don't have to waste any time. Just get right into it, right?
Yeah. But I would love to be able to go completely uncensored and just say what I think. Trust me, I've had moments where it's like I just want to go in on this, absolutely. And but then
do it, Paul. Monday nights are raw and unfiltered over at Understanding Conspiracy. Tune in.
Well, I can't. Well, I have Patreon. I could always upload something to Patreon. Maybe that was a little bit more risky. I have my banned content on YouTube is on Patreon. I have said things where I've got to immediately just strike. No, you can't talk about that. Video taken down. Here's a strike in your channel. It'll go away in 3 months if you do this special course.
I think that's a video you should post, a highlights cut of the things you've been banned for on YouTube, so people know what things you've been banned for.
Well, there's a list of topics.
Don't take my advice. I'm not doing it. Don't do any of that. You'll be off there before you even know it.
I do have a list like of things that you just can't, words you can't say, but that list is always changing. And I find it's kind of like, look, I could say something today, and in 10 years' time, they'll flag me for that thing I said 10 years ago and shut the channel down for it. You actually don't know. So you may as well just say whatever you want and see what happens. You know? Right. But I think it's how it's said that's the problem, not the topic itself, or talking about the topic. It's an odd game. It really is.
And the rules are always changing. I mean, I got kicked off of everything. I've started all my social media accounts probably a dozen times. And I
Mhm.
started a YouTube channel again. I had to do it again about 60 days ago or whatever it was, because I had that tune about vaccines and it just got flagged for violating policy rights or whatever it was. And they took my whole channel down again. And then I've deleted it a couple times because I just said I've had enough of this. But yeah, I'm still getting banned for stuff for a long time ago.
Or maybe you're on a list or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm
you're like
definitely on a list, 100%.
some kind of
Yeah,
blacklist. Yeah, your name
yep,
itself. I don't know.
yep.
Who really knows how this works?
But
But
I'm not
I'll,
changing
I'll
the name. I'm going to keep rolling with it.
you keep doing it. Well, on that note, maybe that was a good time for you to plug whatever you can plug for the audience listening, and then we'll probably start wrapping this up now. So, where
Yeah,
can
I
they
just want,
find you?
yeah,
Go ahead.
scotthelmer.com. That's the spot. And then whatever social media is live at the time you check in on there, you might be able to go to that too, for whatever flavor people like to use. But scotthelmer.com is the spot. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can buy your music there. They can support you on there in any way.
They can, I'm grateful for any opportunity to talk about it. And like I said, I don't want to be the conspiracy song guy. I just talk about human life, living with the things that I know and I've experienced. And if that connects with people or if that causes them to go look deeper into a topic, that's fantastic. And I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really it. And I want to remind everybody that's listening to this, the most important thing is never give up. Never give up. You can always find a solution to a problem, even if it seems like the most monumental thing in your life, because I've been there, as I described earlier. And I'm grateful and I thank God every day. Doesn't mean everything's a piece of cake and every day is not, there's not challenges. But I am so glad I didn't pull that trigger. And I've had so many gifts given to me along the way of meeting other people that may have heard my story before I came to town to play a fundraiser concert for suicide prevention or something. I had a little girl come up to me one time after a show. This was early on. It was like a Wounded Warriors barbecue in Texas, and suicide was part of the thing because obviously that's a big part of veterans and trauma and PTSD. And I tried to do interviews in every town I would go to, whether it was even like a barbecue with 50 people that I was playing at a restaurant or something, just to tell my story. And I always led with my scars, as I'd say. I'd tell them all this bad stuff I did. I committed a crime, almost went to prison, and that's not a reason to take your own life. And I remember I did an interview. It was a small little event early on, and a little girl came up to me after the show with her mom, and her mom was looking at me, and I goes, okay, this is going to be interesting. I could just tell. And she kept looking to her mom, and she goes, and the mom would say, you tell him. You tell him. You know what to tell him. You tell him. And I kind of bent down and looked in her eyes, and she told me, I was going to do what you were going to do a little while ago because I didn't get a date for the dance. And she was like a seventh grader. And that's why I always use the date for the dance example. And at this point, but I didn't, because we heard your interview about what you went through and why you didn't take your life. And her mom is now in tears standing next to her, and she's got this big smile on her face. And I got to tell you, that was one of the most powerful things that I ever experienced on this journey. And immediately I had a conversation with God. I said, thank you for putting me here and getting me to this point. And if nothing else ever happens, if I die tomorrow, this was all worth it to go through all the bad stuff I went to hear that little girl say that and know it affected one person positively. So I tell all your listeners, I mean, we're in a bad economic time. I think it's going to get worse. I think we all know that. I think things are going to happen that we can't even imagine right now. Not to be a fear monger, but it's a tough road out there. And I want to remind everybody on a personal level with your families, whether it's just you and your neighbors, or it's you and your family, and you got a huge family, there are challenges. You're going to get sick. Things are going to happen. You're going to lose people, lose jobs. There are going to be challenges. Never give up. And always remember the guy you heard on this podcast or this YouTube video that told you he was there and you can make a comeback. Never give up. Suicide is not the answer. You can make a comeback. That's the most important message for me.
Amen. And that's probably a good place to end this conversation. So yeah, Scott, thanks for coming on. So thanks for doing this. It's been a good one. It's been going for a long time, almost 2.5 hours. The time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Paul, I'm grateful for the opportunity. It was a great chat. I really enjoyed it.
Sure thing. And don't be a stranger. Stay in touch. You've got my email. Get your manager to keep emailing me as well. She's very persistent. She'll keep reminding me.
She runs a tight ship, man. She worked for me when I had my insurance business many years ago. She works remotely, and boy, she's on the ball. Yeah, she's really good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So get her to keep in touch with me as well. And we'll do this again sometime for sure. But yeah, Scott, thanks
Paul,
for doing this.
I appreciate it. God bless, and I wish you guys a great Christmas and New Year's and all. Even though it's a lot of pagan stuff, it's still a good time to have time with the family and be thankful for all the things we have. So I really appreciate all the stuff you do as well.
Well, thanks for that. God bless, and I'll speak to you soon.
God bless, Paul. Take care. Cheers.